Kind of painful to switch gears here, but I'm going to call to order the June 1st, 2026 meeting of the Healdsburg City Council. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Higley? Here. Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards?
Here.
Mayor Herod?
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. There was no closed session to report on. And so we'll move on to announcements and presentations with Fire Chief Boaz. Welcome.
Okay, how about now? Good evening, Mayor Herod, members of council, city staff, and members of the community. I'm Jason Boaz, Fire Chief. Good to see you again for another employee recognition. Tonight, we're here to recognize John Sullivan for 20 years of dedicated service to the city of Healdsburg and the Healdsburg Fire Department. So, John, do you mind coming up and standing with me? As many of us did, John began his career with Healdsburg Fire Department as a reserve firefighter in 2006. He was hired full-time with Healdsburg Fire as a fire engineer in July of 2008 and promoted to fire captain in July of 2016. Most recently, John transitioned into the role of fire inspector in January of this year. John holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology from the University of Colorado Boulder, and he has continued to expand his knowledge and commitment to the fire service throughout his career, including becoming a certified hazardous materials incident commander, firefighter 2, and a fire officer, among many, many other certifications. Over the past several years, though, John has focused heavily on furthering his fire prevention education, completing numerous specialized training courses and certifications. When the opportunity became available to join our fire prevention division as a fire inspector, John successfully competed for and earned that position. Although John has only been in the fire inspector role for approximately 20 weeks, he has truly jumped in with both feet. In that short amount of time, he has successfully passed his underground storage tank inspector certification, which is no joke. His underground storage tank inspector certification exam, and he recently helped complete more than 4,000 weed abatement inspections throughout our community. Throughout his career, John has also taken on several critical staff assignments for the department. He manages both our radio communications program and our self-contained breathing apparatus SCBA program, two essential systems that directly impact the safety of our firefighters every single day. What I've always appreciated about John is how seriously he takes these responsibilities. He understands that these are not just equipment assignments. They are critical tools that help ensure our firefighters can communicate, operate safely, and come home after every call. John possesses an incredible skill set, which he brings to the department to help solve problems, both small and large. He is very detailed and thorough in his work, and it's important to him that things get done right. John has also played an important role in our apparatus committee, assisting with the planning, the specifications, and the build process of the department apparatus, including our ladder truck, and most recently our new Type 1 fire engine, which you know about and which is on order from Pierce Manufacturing. What stands out most about John is his enthusiasm, his dedication, and his passion for the fire service. Whether responding to emergencies, maintaining critical equipment, helping design the future of our fleet, or working in fire prevention to make our community safer, John approaches his work with pride and a genuine desire to serve. John is married to his wife, Ruby, and together they have two daughters, Bonnie and June, who are with us tonight, all of them. And they have lived in Healdsburg for more than 20 years. I'm incredibly proud of all the staff we have at Healdsburg Fire Department, and John is a great example of the quality of people who make this organization what it is. He is a dedicated firefighter, a committed public servant, and most importantly, a really good person with a great sense of humor. So John, thank you for 20 years of service to the Healdsburg Fire Department and the city of Healdsburg.
Hey, thanks, Steve.
I appreciate it. Awesome. You're welcome to say anything if you'd like, but no pressure.
All right. I would just like to say thank you. It truly is an honor to serve the city of Healdsburg, but I don't think I could do any of it without the support of Ruby. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Don't sit down yet. I just want to thank you so much for your service. I really appreciate learning more about what you do. And he forgot to add that you were excellent at driving us through the parade last week. So thank you for that. But yeah, it was great to have you with us, and really appreciate the opportunity to recognize your 20 years of service to Healdsburg. Does anybody else have a few words for John? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's wild that 20 years have gone by since you had that reserve conversation with Chief, who said you should really think about doing this as a career. And here you are 20 years later, and our city is so much better off thanks to your commitment and showing up every day for all of us. And we really are just so proud that you've been committed to the city for this long, and I see your family and your kids around town, and you don't just contribute to the city and the city family and our safety, but you contribute in a lot of ways to this community, and it really means a lot that you are so invested in this community, and just thank you from all of us. It really is an honor to get to have people who work for this city and uplift everything around it, and so thank you, and hopefully let's have 20 more years. Just teasing. But truly, thank you.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you too. It's been an honor to have you working here, and all the things that you guys do. It's amazing, and really appreciate it. I also appreciate your animal bit that you do with the fostering and all of that. So that means a lot to me as well. So you and your family, but thank you. Thank you for your 20 years.
Thank you.
Okay, if you'd like to come forward, we're going to do a photograph, and we can welcome your family, firefighters. We have a number of your colleagues are here tonight. If they'd like to join us for the photo, we'd welcome you up here.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Come on, you guys. Thanks, come on. Past and present, everybody.
Oh, Ruben's even here. All right. I need you to get in closer.
Can you get a little closer still? A little friendlier? There we go. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Mitchell is going to read a proclamation declaring June 26th as Gun Violence Awareness Month.
Thank you. So proclamation of the City Council of the City of Healdsburg declaring June 2026 as National Gun Violence Awareness Month in the City of Healdsburg. Whereas gun violence touches every segment of our society and impacts people of all ages, and gun violence raises the likelihood of fatality by those who intend to injure others and among those who attempt suicide. And gun violence places children and young people at risk at increased risk of physical harm and injury, and we acknowledge the vital role of community organizations in supporting families experiencing the devastating effects of gun violence. And these organizations play a vital role in supporting grieving parents and spouses as they cope with their loss, ensuring the continued well-being of surviving family members. And whereas the City of Healdsburg supports continued statewide efforts to strengthen gun safety laws and educate the community on on safe gun storage. And whereas the City of Healdsburg is committed to raising awareness of gun violence and providing educational resources to reduce the risks of injuries or loss of life due to gun violence in our community. And Gun Violence Awareness Month honors the many lives that have been cut short by gun violence in our country and supports efforts to reduce gun-related crimes in the United States. And it is appropriate to set aside time to honor those Americans whose lives are cut short each year by gun violence and the countless survivors whose lives are forever altered. So now therefore be it proclaimed, the City Council of the City of Healdsburg hereby declares June 2026 as Gun Violence Awareness Month in the City of Healdsburg.
Thank you. And I understand, Vice Mayor, do you have a few words?
Yeah, I wanted to let the public know that since we've done this program, we've had a gun lock availability program, and that program does continue to this day, that if you have a gun and it's not locked, you can come to our police department and get a trigger lock for that so that we can continue to have safe storage of weapons in our city.
Thank you. All right, moving on now to city manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I have a few updates. First off, I wanted to note we're fully in the summer event schedule, but I wanted to note a couple of things that are a little bigger in scale over and above. We're obviously having Tuesday concerts and Sundays in the plaza these days, but a few things of note. First off is on June 6th, so this coming weekend, is the Bloodroot Ramble up at the community center. Actually a nice tie-in to the proclamation that the council just issued. I know that event every year raises a lot of money for gun violence prevention. So we're proud on the city side to play just a small role in helping to support that. But it's a big event up at the community center that afternoon and evening. So just want to remind people about that. There can be some impacts in terms of crowds and parking, but the last few years have been really well run and went very smoothly. And then the following weekend, we've got another busy Saturday. Our Juneteenth concert in the plaza is, I know it's Juneteenth, but it's June 13th. And that will run from 2 to 8 p.m. And then also that day, and linked up with the pride flag raising that the council just commemorated earlier tonight, is the Professionals with Pride community gathering at the Foley Family Community Pavilion that afternoon, 3 to 5, and then a ticketed tea dances that evening from 7 to 9. So in the short history of the Foley Family Community Pavilion, this will be our second time already, double booked with downtown events, but so far it's gone well, and so I'm sure we'll handle it, but it'll be another busy weekend. A few other updates I wanted to share. Just a reminder, first off, that business licenses are up for renewal. If anybody's listening who has a business and a business license, it's June 1st, so just 30 days left to renew business licenses. So just a reminder. And then wanted to share a little bit of information about our can recycling station here at City Hall. That is not run, it's hosted by the city, but not run by the city. But is seeing some pretty significant operating changes. It's moving to a self-serve model rather than staffed, and will require people, I think, to either have a web interface or an app. So we know that's a challenge for some people and a little bit of a tech burden, but unfortunately that's where it's headed. So we're going to be trying to get some information out about that, and just make sure people have what they need to hopefully be able to continue using it with as little friction as possible. And then lastly, I just wanted to share exciting news regarding one of our affordable housing projects, which is that leasing has opened for the Saggio Hills Affordable Housing Phase 1. I think that is 47 units, if I have this right, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units at, I think, 50, I'm doing this from memory, 50 to 60 or 50 to 80% of area and medium income. They are consistent with our local preference policy. They're exclusively marketing right now in Healdsburg. working through our city staff, working through Core Zone, working through the Chamber of Commerce. And we're hoping to get a very strong response from the city as that building begins lease up. But it's exciting that it's moved along really quickly through construction. They've already made great progress on funding subsequent phases, so we'll continue to add more units up there. But moving pretty quickly to a point of having some tenants in that building, and we're working closely with the developer. So good news up there. I think that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions for city manager? Yeah.
If folks are interested in applying to the Saggio Hills Affordable Housing project, how do they go about finding the application?
That's a great question. I will ask our housing director to give you a better answer than I can.
It's Stephen Sotomayor, Housing Director. So we will be putting out the flyer. It just came out today. So this is as of today on our social media and post it. And it will have a link to a website for them to be able to do so, on top of also working through different organizations and putting it out throughout the city. So that's as of today. We'll get it pushed out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, we're going to move on to public comments. This time is set aside to receive comments from the public on any item of interest to the public within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, other than scheduled agenda items. Pursuant to the Brown Act, however, the City Council cannot consider any issues or take action on any request during this comment period. Do we have anybody who'd like to issue? Yeah, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jason Tarmino. I'm your PG&E representative. Sorry, my voice is a little on the way out. I wanted to come here to talk about several things. First of all, I understand that the undergrounding projects on Healdsburg Avenue and Grove are a pressing issue, so I met with City Manager Kay today about that, and I'll be working to see if we can get some resolution to those two projects, which I know are important to the town. Additionally, I just wanted to mention a couple of things that are going on the bigger picture within utility companies in California, really in the West. One is Wildfire Victims First coalition that we've put together. The state will be creating legislation this session to vote on how our future wildfire protections for citizens, homeowners works out. And so I want to make sure that all of our local electeds are aware of the situation and can reach out as they so feel free to their state elected officials, because this is a very important thing for wildfire victims. It's important for utilities. It's also important for trial lawyers and insurance companies. So this will be not necessarily a contentious issue, but there are many different parties that are interested in the outcomes of that. And the more voices that are heard, especially from local electeds, I think that's going to be quite important in crafting something that works for the whole of society going forward. And as always, I'm your main point of contact from PG&E. So whatever questions you have, I probably don't have the answer, but I can find the right person to connect with you and provide the right information. And I'd also just like to offer, if in the future you would like me and or others from PG&E to be on the agenda so we can have a back and forth discussion about all subjects, very much happy to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak at public comment? Welcome.
Kathy Waterbury here. I'd like to let the public note that we're having a lot of urban wildlife active right now. I found one of our urban creek ducks dead. It may have ran into a vehicle. They tend to fly low when they take off. We have a gray fox that is coming out earlier than normal. I think we should put signs up mainly for drivers. Watch out also for low-flying ducks as they take flight. There was one dead on Vine Street, and they fly super low across Matheson Street to get to the other side. You know, they could hit a windshield, crack a windshield, or even cause a wreck. So I've noticed that, and I noticed a lot of gray foxes since we encouraged into their area where Enzo Village or Montages, that's where they usually roamed, but since they've been pushed out due to development, they're coming more into town. So also people who may have backyard chickens should notify them to make sure they are in, before dusk, maybe about 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to make comment tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Higley,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yes.
Mayor Harrod.
Yes. Thank you. All right, moving on now to public hearings. We have two public hearings tonight. The first one, item 7A, City of Healdsburg vacancies, recruitment and retention efforts pursuant to Assembly Bill 2561 with Chief Human Resources Officer Nicole Lopez. Welcome.
Thank you for having me tonight. Going. Again, thank you all for having me. Tonight, I'll be presenting the city's annual workforce vacancy recruitment and retention report pursuant to AB 2561. Slide, please. Thank you. Tonight's item is informational in nature and fulfills the city's annual reporting obligations under AB 2561. The recommended action is simply for council to receive and file the city's report on workforce vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts pursuant to the Government Code Section 3502.3. Slide, please. Our agenda for this evening is to briefly review the bill's requirements, discuss the city's vacancy rates, and our recruitment efforts, retention initiatives, and organizational culture. Slide, please. Thank you. As an overview, AB 2561 amended the MMBA, the state law governing labor relations between public employers and their employees, and requires annual vacancy recruitment and retention reporting. Additional reporting may be required if vacancy rates exceed 20%, though I'm happy to report no Healdsburg bargaining units exceed that threshold. Slide, please. Slide 5 reflects our 4 bargaining groups and their point in time vacancy information as of March 31st, 2026. We currently have 148 budgeted positions citywide, and at that time, 9 total vacancies for a 6% vacancy rate, which was down 1% from last year's report and reflects a stable workforce overall in a competitive labor market. MMPEA reflects 1 vacancy. However, I'd like to note that with the creation of the PIO position in fiscal year 26, we have a vacant administrative analyst position that is not proposed to be funded in the next 2-year budget cycle that you'll review tonight, leaving MMPEA effectively at 0% vacancy. IAFF currently has 1 vacancy in the fire engineer classification. However, the vacancy is a result of a recent internal promotion that you may have just heard about, which we view as a positive reflection of the department's ability to develop and advance talent from within. The department is currently completing a promotional recruitment process to fill that vacant position, and we do anticipate having the vacancy filled by the end of June. So again, within a month, that will effectively be a 0% vacancy rate. With IBEW, we're currently finalizing the selection process for 2 vacant utility worker positions. And once those are filled, the 1 vacancy will remain, bringing IBEW's vacancy rate to effectively 1.4%. So the city is continuing to evaluate those vacancies and work on those effectively as well. Finally, HPOA, our Healdsburg Police Officers Association, like many law enforcement agencies, the police department is currently experiencing challenges and has a vacancy rate of 16.6% or 4 total vacancies. To support both current employees and future recruitment efforts, the department is currently working on organizational effectiveness to help ensure high quality community service while strengthening employee recruitment and retention. 3 of those 4 vacancies are for police officers. We are currently working on a start date for 1 officer who just completed their background. So that would bring that vacancy rate down to 12.5%. Ultimately, AB 2561 was designed to shine a light on significant vacancy challenges that can impact organizational effectiveness and service delivery. At this time, I'm still pleased to report that all of the city's bargaining units remain below that 20% threshold. Slide, please. Thank you. This is an overview of our recruitment processes. So when a vacancy is created, a hiring manager submits a requisition to fill the vacancy. HR opens a job posting, screens applications, and collaborates with hiring managers within the department to conduct interviews. Upon selection of a candidate, a conditional job offer is provided. The candidate completes pre-employment processes such as background checks or a pre-employment physical. And then a start date is determined and a formal offer is made. And the goal of this process is really a consistent, efficient, and merit-based hiring process. Slide, please. We'll wrap up the presentation tonight with some of our recruitment and retention strategies that have been working well for us to attract candidates and retain qualified staff. For example, we offer a modest recruitment bonus for difficult to recruit positions with relocation assistance as well. For police specifically, we do offer a slightly higher incentive for entry level or recruit police officers. And then there's a third step for lateral police officers. We also offer a referral incentive program for police, where current officers who refer a successful police officer candidate may also receive an award for that of about $3,000. The police officer recruit position has been extremely successful, where we pay recruits to attend the academy that's paid with benefits, and then we get to hire them straight from there. The city has initiated a citywide classification and compensation study to evaluate market competitiveness, internal alignment, and position classifications. The study will also help inform future recruitment and retention strategies and support the city's ability to attract and retain a qualified workforce. The city also recently filled that public information and community engagement officer role that I mentioned, which has expanded our ability to provide active social media advertising on places like LinkedIn and Instagram, where we're able to tout our top-notch benefits and our city's amazing culture. We maintain a robust employee appreciation program that recognizes employee contribution and helps foster engagement, connection, and organizational pride. We host an annual employee appreciation luncheon, which is held off-site, and it's consistently well attended by employees across various departments in the organization. During that time, we recognize an employee who's been nominated by their peers with our Pride in Public Service Award, celebrating outstanding service and commitment to the community. One other component of our retention strategy is really a variety, a full calendar of employee appreciation and engagement events held throughout the year, including a Love Where You Work campaign, a summer barbecue, a holiday potluck, and this year was actually our first ever benefits fair that we held in person over at the Corp Yard. So that was held earlier today. And that provided employees an opportunity to meet directly with benefit providers, ask questions, and better understand the resources we already offer to them. And these investments really help create a strong workforce culture and support workforce stability and retention. Slide, please. So again, the recommended action for tonight is for the council to receive and file the city's AB 2561 workforce vacancy report. As a part of the process for AB 2561, all recognized employee organizations can make a presentation at the hearing regarding vacancies. And tonight we do have one presentation by IAFF. So I would like to invite Amanda Newhall to the podium as they had a short item they wanted to present. And then after that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Newhall, President of IFF Local 2604, your Healdsburg Professional Firefighters. I'd like to thank council members Kelly, Hagley, Mitchell, Vice Mayor Edwards, and Mayor Herod for allowing me to speak tonight regarding retention and recruitment. I'll keep my presentation brief, beginning with a summary of our current state. Our membership is made up of 11 positions, 9 being suppression firefighters and 2 being prevention inspectors as their primary job roles. One of the fire inspectors, congratulations, John, was created as a result of funds accessed through Sonoma County's Measure H sales tax, which passed in 2024. And a standards of coverage study has been conducted by AP Triton, utilizing these tax-based funds at a significant cost to the community. Because of that, I believe this is an area of public concern. I have not received the recommendations provided by AP Triton as of yet, but we look forward to working in a labor management partnership to ensure total transparency and cooperation of if there are any changes needed, or in order to make those unbiased findings achievable and in line with our mission of providing the highest level of service to our community. Those of you on the council that have recently spent time with me know that AP Triton's recommendations are chiefly based on National Fire Protection Agency's Standard 1710, among other local ordinances, and surround response times and adequate staffing models, which is likely to impact recruitment needs. Anyone on the council that wishes to grasp a deeper understanding and access to this document is invited to meet with me directly. To seek knowledge behind what I suspect will be a significant change to our current operations and the working conditions of your firefighters. Since firefighters will be the workers providing direct service and implementation of changes as a result, I encourage members of the community to reach out to any of your Healdsburg professional firefighters with questions. While we understand these recommendations will take time and resources to achieve, we remain flexible and excited, but do wish to make it clear that our suppression firefighters will need support. And I truly believe NFPA 1710 provides a solid roadmap that will be in line to provide that support. In the matters of upcoming recruitment resources, California Joint Apprenticeship Committee, or CalJAC, resources remain at the ready for specialized recruitment materials and department marketing opportunities that we offer in order to aid in elevating candidate qualities and quantities in a diversity of communities. Should our city wish to engage in collaborative efforts with our labor group, we remain ready to combine resources and work together to find the best candidates. In a matter of ongoing retention, your Healdsburg firefighters are due for a new contract July of 2027. We are excited to report that all indicators point to AB 1383 being signed in by the governor. This fix to Pepper Calper's retirement for your firefighters is projected to aid in retention and opens up possibilities and further bolstering recruitment as well. In conclusion, as the council works to finalize the upcoming budget cycle, I request that you consider your consideration of funds recommended to support the findings of the fire department's standards of coverage study and Local 2604's upcoming contract renewal. Thank you for your time and consideration of our requests and working perspectives. If there are no questions, this concludes my statement.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is go to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the council. So if you can just stay available, maybe there'll be some questions at that time.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, at this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing for public comment. If there's anybody here who'd like to come and speak on this matter, please come forward this time. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Does anybody have a question or a comment on this item? No? Yep, okay.
Can we have a timeline on when the standards of cover study is coming back or coming to the council for the fire department? It was my understanding, I know that's not your bailiwick, but it relates to the upcoming conversations about staffing. So, and I know we also have our budget item coming up later tonight.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Kelly. We have it on the agenda for June 15th. We'll be discussing it tomorrow at our department head meeting, but at this point, I feel like we're going to be able to move forward with that date. I'm still waiting to get the document from AP Triton to share with the staff. We're also doing a strategic planning meeting coming up. My goal was to get it to council prior to the July break, but it's more important to me that we get this right rather than fast. So we have it on the agenda. I'll be talking with the city manager about it tomorrow.
Great. And then sometimes when we have longer documents, which I'm imagining it's not just going to be like a 4-page staff report, it gets published prior to, we as council members receive the public packet when the packet is published to the community. And so sometimes when there's plans such as the water shortage contingency plan or other things, or the urban water management plan, I should say, like it's published so that everybody in the community can read it and have plenty of time to read it. Is that something that this may call for, or you don't know yet? And obviously you don't have the document yet, so it might be hard to say when we'd be able to publish that. But
I concur with the last part. I think it's hard to say right now. Some of these documents require a public review time, and obviously then we build that into our timeline. If I'm being honest, if we're going to make June 15th, there's probably not any extra days to spare. It's not that we'll be sitting on it, it's that we'll be trying to get it ready to go in time for publishing the agenda 5 days before the meeting. If that date were to slip, which as the chief mentioned is possible, we want to be honest, we're still working and trying to make it. There may be more opportunity, but if we hit that date, realistically, it's probably right around publication time.
So just for context, the document's going to be over 200 pages. So it wouldn't be the end of the
one
world.
weekend reading for everybody.
I will also note what we're planning as a presentation. We would not dump 200 pages on you and expect you to make any irrevocable determinations based on that. It would just be a chance to present and have a conversation. So if that takes a little bit of the pressure off with the size of the document, it would really just be a beginning of that conversation and review.
Okay. And then how does that play into, because there's dedicated funds through Measure H that are allocated to the city that is has to do with the potential, right? We don't know what the report says because nobody's seen it about hiring. How does that then play into the budget conversation that we are having now for the 2-year cycle coming up?
Sure, that's a good question. And when I believe at the budget meeting, when Director Edgar, you can answer this if you want, but when we did the budget meeting, I believe what Director Edgar mentioned is that we would be coming back to council after that we got a chance to review the standards of cover, do our strategic plan, and come back to council with a more coherent plan based on the data that's in the standards of cover. Again, it's a time frame thing, but I can expect that we'll be back in front of council with a budget amendment at some point.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No.
So if
All
it's
right.
okay with the council, I'll speak with the city manager about that tomorrow, and we can weigh the pros and cons of kicking it to August. Obviously, the council's dark in July. It would give more time for you to review it, but also more time to get it right and collaborate with the staff. So, okay.
Okay, we'll close that public hearing. Thank you very much, Nicole. And move on to the next one, 7B, the 2025 Urban Water Management Plan with Utilities Engineer Manager Patrick Foos. Welcome. Or
Good evening.
Larry.
It is a team today. We're
Okay,
all
great.
presenting, providing a little context. There are 2 items tonight. They're interrelated, and they will also be showing up at the next council meeting. The first one is the Urban Water Management Plan, which again is just a look at a forecast of supply versus demand so that we feel comfortable that we have enough water moving forward. Within that plan is the water shortage contingency plan. And when council is approving the plan at the next meeting, tonight is just the public hearing to review it. If there aren't significant comments, it'll come back on consent. When you approve the urban water management plan, you're also approving the water shortage contingency plan, which goes into the city's municipal code through an ordinance, which is the second item tonight, which will also have a second reading in 2 weeks. Next slide, please. This is the team. Patrick Foos, Rob Skates, and Tara Sampson have done a lot of work over a long period of time. This plan is a heavy lift. Very thankful to their expertise and their ethic to get all of this done on time. Next slide, please. So this is the agenda, and in light of our public meeting, which was about an hour and a half, as a couple of you know, we have pared this presentation down significantly, but it still is a lot of information, and it's probably going to take us about 20 minutes to get through it. And there'll be a little bit of musical chairs between the 3 of them to get through it. So with that, I will turn it over to Patrick. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Patrick Foos, Utility Engineering Manager. So the Urban Water Management Plan is an effort that we take on every 5 years, and it goes through our water supply versus our water demand projections, and encounters a couple of, or considers a couple of scenarios. How bad can bad get? What's our water shortage contingency for that, as well as a number of consecutive dry years. The Urban Water Management Plan makes us eligible for certain funding opportunities, so that's good. And it's also required for water purveyors that either distribute more than 3,000 acre feet of water per year or have more than 3,000 customers. Our distribution is just a little short of 2,000 acre feet per year, but we have about 4,500 water customers. Next slide, please. So our water system is made up of a network of pipes throughout the city. We have about 60 miles of pipe that range from 1.5 inches to 16 inches. We've got 7 finished water reservoirs, which generally control the pressure. It's not a significant volume of storage. In fact, the predominance volume in those storage tanks is for fire protection rather than for water distribution. We have 1 raw water storage tank. It's the Gauntlet Reservoir, and it's a few thousand gallons. It's again, not a significant supply of water. Our water is derived from 3 well fields. We've got one at Gauntlet, which is kind of at the end of March Avenue, and then you got to go around the mountain to get down to the river. One at Badger Park, we call it the Fitch well field, and one at Dry Creek. So the 80% of our water rights are derived from the Russian River, and 20% are derived from Dry Creek. Russian River is sourced from Lake Mendocino, and Dry Creek is sourced from Lake Sonoma. Next slide, please. So we do have some challenges ahead for our water supply, especially those Russian River sources. So the Potter Valley project, you might have heard about this in the news. There's been a bit of news about people from the South having eyes on that particular activity. So it was constructed in the 1920s, generating electricity and diverting water from the Eel River system to the Russian River system. And the water that passed through the turbines to generate the electricity is what went to the Russian River system. Over the years, environmental considerations have trimmed back the amount of water that can be passed through the turbines at the Potter Valley project to a point where PG&E has determined that it's no longer economically viable to continue operating it. And they had, in 2025, put an application to surrender their license to operate to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC. And FERC accepted it, and there's a couple of caveats. One is they have to decommission the Potter Valley project power generations station, as well as take down a couple of dams in that system. And we're anticipating that those actions wouldn't start until about 2028. Next slide, please. So to give you a geographical reference for these, the gold area is the watershed for Russian River. Rainfall that hits that golden area is going to get into the Russian River, especially further north, it gets into Lake Mendocino, which is good for us. The tan, well, I guess it's more of a gray, light gray area. That's the Eel River watershed, and that white area, that's the part that contributes to that Potter Valley project. Next slide, please. So this is more of a diagram that shows how those areas are impacted by the surrendering of the Potter Valley project license to operate. So the Cape Horn Dam's coming down. The Lake Pillsbury, the Scott Dam is going to be removed as well. So there's a couple of reservoirs on that end of things. And then the Potter Valley project itself is going to be decommissioned. So, but we would still get whatever's ending up in Lake Mendocino, whatever's ending up in Russian River. That's going to be our water, as well as water that's tributary to Lake Sonoma and the Warm Springs Dam. Next slide, please. So what do these challenges mean to us? In normal to wet years, we're doing pretty well. We're anticipating no change, no reduction in our water rights. In those drier years, we're anticipating some level of curtailment, perhaps all but our most senior water right. And Rob's going to talk to you about that in just a little bit. Under drought conditions, the use of Lake Sonoma, our Sonoma County Water Agency, Sonoma Water these days, purchased water right, particularly if we can divert it from Dry Creek, and along with the Dry Creek water right, would be beneficial for us. In those severe drought conditions, where all of the water rights are curtailed, and that would include what we experienced in 2021. Even that purchased water right was curtailed, and we had to petition the state for water for public health and safety. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Tara.
Great. Next slide, please. Actually, these are still you, Patrick.
Oh, sorry. Jump the gun. All right. So you might have heard that rainfall is going to be a big contributing factor for us. And over the years, this chart is around Ukiah, which is tributary to Lake Mendocino, that the grouping is quite tight over the years. And this data set took us back to 1911. And you can see that there's a little bit of variability in the early part of the year, but we're tightly grouped. But over the years, it's about the same. And Santa Rosa, which is tributary to Lake Sonoma, is very similar. Next slide, please. So we did some forecasting while we got onto a website that provided some forecasting information. And this is the rainfall forecast, the anticipated change. And you can see that moving forward through time, the rainfall that we're anticipating on average is going to be about the same. The peaks and valleys associated with this are a bit more pronounced than they were previously, which is consistent with what we've seen. The drier periods are drier and they seem to be a little bit longer, and the wet periods are wetter. Next slide, please. This is perhaps the more interesting one, is that moving forward through time for temperature, that temperature is rising. There's a couple of scenarios in play. One is kind of a medium probability, and the other one is more extreme. And either way you dice it, the temperature is moving upwards. And this is going to impact the irrigation patterns and how people might irrigate their lawns, for example. And that greatly impacts our water usage. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the slide where I would turn it over to Tara. Sorry about the fumble there. All right, so our water source vulnerabilities. So with diversions upstream of Lake Mendocino will have impacts on the city's water supply, particularly in those drier years, and shifting reliance on our Dry Creek water rights, as well as those purchased water rights that I had mentioned. The improvements to Lake Mendocino's sources are being considered by Sonoma Water. In fact, they had provided a presentation to the City Council, and the City Council had issued a letter of support for that concept. But that concept is going to have some costs associated with it when and if it does come through. Our rainfall totals by month are expected to remain fairly stable. However, those temperatures are anticipated to rise, and like I said, influencing irrigation usage. And then our surface water is our only source of water these days. And if we could expand that to include water sources that are not so vulnerable to those critical dry years, such as groundwater, that would be a great improvement for us. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Tara.
Great, thank you. Next slide.
So population is a key factor in the urban water management plan. And as you can see here, population over the past 2 decades has been relatively flat and even slightly declining in most recently. And the forecasted population shown here in sort of the hashed columns aligns with the forecasted population used for the climate mobilization strategy. The big jump in the first 5 years includes the state mandated housing targets from the regional housing needs assessment, and then has more steady growth out to 2045. Next slide, please. And we'll take a look here at the past decade of potable water consumption, which varies significantly with dry and wet years. Here you can see the significant drop during the most recent multi-year drought, with usage beginning to rebound since then, but still with some sustained conservation. And next slide, please. So this next chart just zooms into more detail for 2025 potable water use categories. And as a tourism destination, hotels are a common water topic, and it is estimated that hotels, motels, and bed and breakfast inns consumed approximately 5% of the total potable water demand in 2025. And then you can see the additional categories here, like our residential usage and other usages. And with the next slide, I will turn it over to Rob.
Good evening, Rob Skates, Water Operations Superintendent. So what we're looking at here is some projections. We've looked at a lot of history, and now we're going to look at drinking water demand projections moving from here into the next 20 years. You can see we did start with 2025 as a baseline last year, where you can see our water year wasn't projected. That was actual 543. So looking at the next 20 years in 5-year increments, which is required, you see the population increase, kind of put some numbers again to what Tara had mentioned. And so we're projecting the water volumes in million gallons per year to be based on the population in that 2025 baseline. Next, please. So normal year, we love those, and we're in one right now. Water rights, so those are permits from the California State Water Board that allow us to divert drinking water from our 2 sources. Patrick mentioned them, Dry Creek, Russian River. We have the 3 well fields listed first up there. Those are our main water rights. Senior water rights, they go back over 75 years. Those are the 3 areas where we're drawing all of our water. But we have additional rights that let us access more water from these sites. So that includes the County Service Agency and the Fitch Mountain area. And then also, like mentioned earlier, the contract and agreement with Sonoma Water to get that additional water up to, we're planning on getting up to an additional almost 300 million gallons when needed, depending on if we have some problems with our rights, curtailments, well field issues, that kind of thing. We kind of have the reasonable versus annual right here. You can see we do have reasonable listed because we can't always access every right we have. There are seasonal issues with water quality at Fitch, and then Dry Creek is a seasonal one as well. But overall, I'll be looking at the next slide here in a little bit. We look pretty awesome as far as how much water we need compared to what we use right there at the bottom. We see the 1059, which is actually, that's 1.059 billion gallons, and we actually only used 543 last year. Next slide. There's a little better way to look at it here. This is a normal year. Like I said, we're looking pretty right now. The bars on the bottom were usage over the year 2025. The 5-year interval or 5-year outlook for up to 2045 are the lines right above the bars. And way up above that is the water supplies available. Now, lots of variables there, including some seasonal water right availability. But as you can see, that orange line, which applied to the 2025 water, was, definitely, we had a lot of leeway there. Nothing required, no curtailment, no water conservation. Those are the years we like. The bar above it kind of takes into account some future water capabilities, including some water extra treatment at some of the sites, additional, and also mentioned the ASR groundwater well that we're anticipating having done within the next few decades. This is the good news. Let's go to the next slide. Bad news. So worst case single dry year is kind of what we'll be focusing on first. Sometimes this is involved with a multiple year drought, but this is worst case here where basically all our water rights are curtailed, and we have to do a petition from the state to get drinking water available for health and safety. You can see this is showing the same blue bars, which indicated monthly water use in 2025, and that nice bold red line, which was the water supply, which would have been the water supply had it been a single dry year, sorry. And you can clearly see the summer months definitely cleared that red bar in a bad way. Obviously, had this happened last year, we would have had a lot of the shortage contingency plan that we're going to mention a little later in detail. Lots of conservation in effect, and also curtailments. That would have been an interesting year. Most of you have been through those interesting years in 2021, maybe as far back as 2014. Hoping not to have that again. You can see the reductions on the left side there, 38% in 25 would have been required. And in 2045, that's the dotted red line, well below the predicted use lines for the coming years, the coming 20 years. Next slide. Multiple dry years, water supply, that's probably a little more common. We do get these. We're looking at the same water rights again. We've got the groundwater called out, but we're hoping that will happen by 2040. You can see multiple dry years. We're anticipating having just our senior water right available. That's the Fitch water right. We're hoping within several years we'll be able to use that year round to help out with this. But if we can use the Sonoma water, contract water, as well as groundwater, you can see the number, the total isn't too far off from the normally available water rights total we have. Next. And here's just putting it on a graph, same thing, they see the numbers. It's a little better outlook here, but this has the groundwater, which the groundwater ASR well, hopefully being able to include that after 2035. And then we can see that usage in 2025 would have been a little more bearable with a multiple dry year condition, but we still see every peak month, most of the peak months anyways, going over those available water supplies. Next, please. Turning it over to Mr. Foose.
Okay, so every plan needs to have some action items on it. And the action items for us are our projects, our future water supply options. So one that's very familiar to the City Council, I'm sure, is the aquifer storage and recovery wells. That would allow us to access groundwater. It would also allow us to store some water underground when water is plentiful, so that we could withdraw it when water is scarce. So we're anticipating that we'd get about 160 million gallons per year out of that, about 0.34 million gallons a day. It doesn't cure all our ills, but it's a step in the right direction. Our next project would be the Dry Creek year-round water rights. Right now, the Dry Creek water right is seasonal. It runs from April to November. This change, which was originally petitioned in the 1990s, would increase our water right to year-round and increase the amount that we could remove from Dry Creek. It would go from 1 cubic foot per second to 1.6 cubic foot per second during the summertime and 2.6 during the wintertime, which, as Rob's graphics had pointed out, the wintertime is not our big problem, it's the summertime. So there's some work that still needs to be done to perfect that water right so that we can get that allocated to us. And we're working with our water rights attorneys to do that. The next one is the Fitch Creek well-filled capacity improvements. So these are, it's a CIP project that is currently on the books and not on the books, but is going to be funded, I think, for our next cycle. And that would increase our capacity to withdraw from that Dry Creek watershed. And it would allow us to use our water right in conjunction with, if we need to, the purchase water from that particular diversion source. The next item is purchase water from Lake Sonoma. So right now we're purchasing 425, or the access to 425 acre feet per year. And we're working with the folks over at Sonoma Water to increase that amount to 900 acre feet per year. Next slide, please. So the other side of the coin, those were supply issues. This one's demand reductions. So we've recently completed the recycled water pipeline for municipal purposes. The top line would be an extension of that. And it would take the recycled water pipeline and serve the junior high school, the high school, the community center, Fitch Mountain School, and I believe one park along the way, and increase offset 8 million gallons more per year from using potable water for irrigation and have them use recycled water. And the last one, and perhaps the most cost-effective one, is conservation. Conservation, as you have surmised from our presentation so far, is going to be a reality going into the future. But our goals are to make that as easy a lift for the community as possible. Next slide, please.
Speaking of water conservation, this slide highlights two recent state regulations: Making Water Conservation a California Way of Life, which sets water use objectives for the city as a whole based on specified calculations for different sectors, and Assembly Bill 1572, which prohibits the use of potable water for the irrigation of non-functional turf for local governments, commercial properties, and common areas of HOAs, which we will be discussing this AB 1572 in more detail in the next council item a little bit later this evening. Next slide, please. So moving to the water shortage contingency plan. Urban water providers must have a water shortage contingency plan, which helps us to be prepared if there is a loss of water supply. This could be from a drought, like we just discussed, or from an emergency event, such as an earthquake or a toxic spill that impacts our normal water supply. The plan has 6 stages, which get progressively more restrictive depending on the anticipated gap in supply versus demand. And there is a required annual update to council leading into the summer season to provide forecasts of the coming year's water supply and demand, and determine if a conservation stage is anticipated to be necessary. Next slide, please. So these final couple slides provide an overview of the 6 stages. I'll just speak to some key elements for each stage, and restrictions that have a recommended change associated with them have been bolded, and we will review the changes in more detail in the next council item about amendments to the ordinance. But first off, the current the water shortage contingency plan, we are recommending adding a stage 0, which would be new. This is for year-round, all the time water waste prohibitions, which would mainly be the state's non-functional turf regulation, as well as addressing large leaks and excessive runoff. Also acknowledging that education, outreach, and programs are an ongoing effort in that stage 0. Stage 1 is being recommended to be mandatory if declared, and focuses on impactful water waste activities, such as not watering after rainfall and only using recycled water for construction purposes. Stage 2 focuses on non-essential uses of water, commercial customers reducing usage, and begins the restrictions on certain number of days per week of watering. Next slide, please. Stage 3 begins the residential budgets based on per person per day amounts. And the prior stages only require that residential customers adhere to the required actions, but do not require a certain percentage reduction from individual residents. And then stage 4 further restricts outdoor watering with potable water. Again, irrigation being one of the main challenges in the summer if our water supply is low. And next slide, please. So stage 5 moves into no outdoor watering with potable water. This is again where we expect if we were in a scenario where we needed 50% reductions. And then stage 5 and stage 6 are also the stages that require new market rate construction to offset its demand. And with that, I believe we will take any questions on the Urban Water Management Plan or the Water Shortage Contingency Plan.
Okay, thank you very much. You did a good job of consolidating all that information from the meeting that I attended a while ago. So great job on that. Thank you very much. I do want to open it up to public comment first, and then we'll bring it back to council. So do we have anybody here who'd like to speak on this item? Please come forward. Welcome.
Yeah, Louis Jordan. I'm just curious as to why stage 0 wouldn't also consider construction of new homes, construction of new commercial properties, et cetera, because that would be something that certainly on a going forward basis, you could certainly at least relieve any future impact by making that part of stage 0. That's just one comment. First time I'm hearing this. I'm sure I'll have more as time goes on and you guys continue to talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward? Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council. Go ahead, Councilmember Kelly.
I wanted to go back to the slide that you shared about our population and water usage. We hear and prospective future population growth, and then how you kind of evaluate if we have capacity for additional commercial development, additional residential development. And then I know because when we looked at the usage slide, so much of the current water usage is residential customers. I'm curious, and this may be a complicated question since I know what our individual residential metering allows for us to evaluate and what it doesn't allow for us to evaluate currently from like a technology standpoint, but does the water efficiency landscape ordinance that every new development has to follow, how greatly does that reduce the baseline water usage? Like say there's 2 houses on a street and one was landscaped and built before the water efficiency landscape ordinance was adopted and the other was built a year ago. How much of a difference does that make in those 2 different households in their water consumption, assuming that the water efficiency landscape ordinance stays in effect and that all future residential development has to follow it? Does the question make sense?
Sure, there were a couple in there. Would you like me to start with the last one?
Sounds good, whatever works for you.
Okay, so the WELO is required for new construction. We also offer a rebate for existing construction that opts to replace their existing lawns with drought-tolerant landscaping. The estimate that I would use for the question you were asking is that when we work with Sonoma Water, for example, like applying for grants, we we use an estimate of 25 gallons per square foot savings. So if you think of most yards being about 1,000 square feet, 25 gallons per square foot that is drought tolerant instead of a lawn.
So you're saving 25,000 gallons of water per
year
on a drought resistance landscape per 1,000 square feet.
Yes.
And then, so when we evaluate, that's super helpful to understand. And for that, the water usage chart that you showed, the pie chart of usage, I'm focusing on landscaping because I'd previously been told that a lot of the residential usage is in fact watering outdoor plants, not showers, not laundry. Is that accurate? Like in a normal household, how much of the water usage goes towards landscaping versus individual drinking, bathing, et cetera?
Yeah, a typical estimate we use is that about 50% of water consumption is outdoor irrigation.
Okay. And so for evaluating our usage and when the curtailments are happening, I know a lot of it doesn't have to do with projected population growth because we're seeing a reduction in mass because of a future drought condition potentially. But do we have concerns that our population growth trajectory is concerning? I know that was in one of your slides with respect to water usage.
Sure. So I'll answer that in a couple parts. The chart that we do have up here with the population forecast, that 25 to 2030 jump is mostly attributed to the regional housing needs assessment. So that is mandatory housing that we have to build, and then steady growth going out from there. I'd actually think that the normal year slide that shows the different months in blue columns would be most helpful. I think we'll get to that one.
Thank you.
One, yeah. Perfect. So this one, and maybe Rob can help me out with this one as well. So the blue columns there are the actual 2025 usage per month. So that's with our current population. And then there are the couple bunched lines right above them. That is the projected use with our increased population. So in this case, even getting to 2040, 2045 with our increased population and therefore increased usage, in a normal year, we are still well below the water supply we have available. But this one also shows that substantial bump in the summer months. The summer months are certainly have more consumption than the winter months. Does that help?
Yeah, so
Okay.
so per the question from Mr. Jordan regarding the ordinance, is there concern that we should be considering curtailing construction? Would that be able to help us meet the constraints in that water shortage future state?
Sure. So the stage 0 I am recommending is an all the time, year round, regardless of drought conditions. So that whatever goes into stage 0 would be something that you are wanting to restrict all the time. So that is more like the growth management ordinance that we already have. Stage 0 would, and other things that are always in place is the California building codes. California building codes get updated every 3 years to can increasingly be more and more water efficient. So any new construction coming in will be more water efficient than any existing construction. And then we do also have that water efficient landscape ordinance for any new construction as well. So those are ongoing efforts. I did not specifically list them in stage 0, but we could acknowledge them in stage 0 if council so chooses.
And then just out of curiosity, comparing the two houses I mentioned earlier, one that was subject to the water efficiency landscape ordinance and one that was built prior to and just using water for outdoor irrigation without that ordinance. Do you know what you can compare to internal uses of? So a home that was built in the 1970s when there were no the green building code standards with respect to water usage, like your low flow toilets or other types of things. Is there a comparison that you know of where you could say, hey, switching your old toilets to new ones and upgrading your shower to have that, the limiter on it will save you a certain number of gallons as like on a household basis? Is that something that you've ever evaluated?
Not that I have ready with me at this moment, but those are the types of numbers that we sometimes work with Sonoma Water to look at what the different types of measures are anticipated to save.
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate the info.
Councilmember Hagley.
I only have a few on this. I have more comments on the second one. Some of it kind of is overlapped a bit. Well, first, I appreciate that we're doing this now and not in the throes of a severe drought. When we're discussing the stages, as somebody that was on council during that, it was a very, very fun time. And, reading the comments, there was a lot that came back in terms of the frustrations back then that I still see in there. So that I'll save that for the second part. My question is, on stage 2, you're recommending halt permits for new pools. So I guess my question is, and I don't like the phrase halt permits. So if you've got a project and you're working on something, you have architects and everything else, is there a way to just not issue the permit so the process can still proceed, but then it stops? You don't get to pull the permit. So all the reviews, everything can keep going until we're out of stage 2 and back down to stage 1. Do you see what I'm saying? It's more of a process. I don't like the idea of like something just stopping because it's just always hard to get that process started up again if you're, applying for a permit. Any comment or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I might actually turn that over to Scott if you are able, what the process looks like since planning handles that one, or if maybe we want David to follow back up. But that is one where we stop issuing permits for new pools unless and so this gets into a bit more of the nitty gritty of exactly what the ordinance text says. It does say unless the water can be sourced from elsewhere.
Okay.
So you can certainly continue with the process, but we are not going to issue the new pool permit either until we are out of a drought or until you prove that the water will come from somewhere else to fill it.
Okay. Yeah. And just to be clear, haven't built a pool and have no plans to build a pool, but when you're going through the permit process, as frustrating as that can be dealing with the city, I'd hate for one segment of your project to be halted. So if it's just still moves forward, but you just can't, the permit isn't issued or whatever, I'm fine with that. Let's see. I think the rest of it is really related to the next part. So I will wait until we get to the next item. Thank you.
Okay.
So I just want to make a comment more than a question, but I also have a question. Yeah, this is like frightening to think about this stuff and remember we were in the midst of all of it when we were making these decisions during the drought. So I appreciate that we're doing this now, that we're really getting clear on it, and it feels very comfortable to have these projections in this plan. I actually live in an HOA that has excessive runoff constantly and overwatering of the lawns. So how would this impact that? How would we, I guess, enforce that would be the question with the HOAs. And I don't know how many do it this way, but ours certainly does.
Yeah, so adding right now, addressing runoff is in stage 1, but that means that the city can only enforce it if we are actually experiencing a drought. So adding it to stage 0 would give us and part of what the next item we'll talk about is adding a new municipal code. So having that as a stage 0 gives us the ability to enforce it all the time since it is a water waste activity. We would go through the same enforcement process that we use for the water shortage contingency plan. So that does involve code enforcement, giving notification, time for remediation, and in the most severe scenarios, if remediation is not provided, then fines and even the potential of shutting off the meter in the most extreme scenarios.
And would the city, so the AB 1572 is part of that what the HOAs are going to need to adhere to? It looked like it was in 2029 or something that it starts. Would the city work with the HOAs, talk to them, like, evaluate their situation to help them meet those requirements?
Yes, so I have already visited 4 of the HOAs that are doing a great job of being proactive. So we can provide the help with determining what turf is functional versus non-functional, and if they take action before the requirement is in place, we do also have the existing lawn conversion rebate as well. So that would be communication that needs to go out to local governments, institutions, commercial and industrial, and then HOA common areas.
Great. Yeah. So it's mostly the lawns that we're kind of going after still here. As I understand, that's the biggest use of water everywhere.
Yes, so that one is a statewide regulation about addressing non-functional turf that is not serving a recreational or community gathering purpose.
So non-functional is just, it's a pretty lawn. It's nice. It's not a ball field or.
Yes, essentially like purely decorative.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that because I think that runoff is a tricky thing. Is it running on the sidewalk? Is it running 2 blocks down the street? And I noticed I don't know if they have an HOA near me, but those are generally watered at night. So is that I know code enforcement works generally 9 to 5. I hope that when we get around, we have a way of making people in those units aware of it also, as opposed to just the HOA, so that we could spread that responsibility to the actual residents who are living there. I wanted to go back to kind of the Potter Valley project and how our water rights work. I'm assuming, and I want to ask the question, do we pay for our water rights now? Do we pay for that water that we get from the Russian River currently?
Thank you for the question, Council Member or Vice Mayor Edwards. We have prescriptive rights for the out of Russian River and Dry Creek, which if there's natural flowing, we have rights to that at no additional cost.
Okay, because it's a little scary hearing what some of the numbers are being bounced around for that Potter Valley water, from $350 currently that's charged to some, to valued at $1,500, to even valued up to $10,000. So I just wanted to make sure that if there is any change with that, which direction it goes, we are set with our projected cost on that water.
Well, there are some things that I'm going to link to it, and that is it's linked to natural water flow. And if that natural water flow isn't happening, then it's water that's been, I guess, stored or mechanically diverted to us.
Okay.
And that has a different flavor to it.
So that's kind of a little something to be aware of with this, whatever happens with that project could Yeah, yes, sir. Be very detrimental to us. Okay. And I wanted to go back to the slide to where we have our multifamily use with the slide with the little slice. And I know we make a lot of assumptions with multifamily housing, like that there will be used transportation, yet we see a lot of our multifamily units have more vehicle parking because it just takes more residents to support that rent. Have we actually gone back and made sure that our assumption that a multifamily use uses less water, and have we compared to what it actually uses in that, or are our numbers matching on that?
Yes, so multifamily properties do use quite a bit less than single-family homes on a per dwelling basis. That is about 30 to 40% less per dwelling. So multifamily properties using about 30 to 40% less water than single-family homes per dwelling unit.
And that is based on landscaping, or is that based on actual water use? Because, you know, whether you have one person in an apartment or unit taking a 3-minute shower, or you have 4 or 5 people that are taking a 3-minute shower, are we seeing any of that effect?
Yes, that 30 to 40% was based on the actual water consumption at Healdsburg multifamily properties compared to Healdsburg single-family homes.
Okay. And then, not sure if it's here or with the landscaping, are we as a city and organization looking at what our cost would be to remove that? Is that something that we are keeping an eye on the estimated cost to remove landscaping?
Can you clarify if that is for our own properties?
Yeah,
or
so
for
if city-owned
commercial
properties,
customers?
if we have to change, I don't know that we have a lot of lawns and so forth. I think we've done a really good job at going forward with new construction on projects with water safe, but I'm just thinking of, do we have, you know, would there be a cost that we're looking at of having to go through and make a lot of changes?
Yes, so that would be a cost to the city. I've visited the city sites with the facilities manager and with the park superintendent to do kind of an initial pass of what do we think is functional versus non-functional and what areas would need to be revamped. As to a cost, I would need to get back to you on what the estimates are.
Just want to make sure we're keeping that number in mind. And then kind of the last one is more of a tool for residents. So we're talking about keeping landscaping alive, keeping things going. But how does somebody really know how much particular tree needs? I know some trees use more water, some trees use less. Is there a guide available to the public of, if you have this type of tree, maybe a picture of it, of how much water that actually requires? Are people maybe over-watering that, or do we don't want to wait till it dies to try to water it, because then you put a lot of water and you never get a return on that? So if there would be, in the stages when we get to that point, it would be really nice if there was some type of guide available of recommended gallons per day per type of tree or shrub. Would be very helpful.
We are members of the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, and at this time, they do not offer exactly what you are describing, but they do have a number of fantastic resources. They do have a garden maintenance guide, tells you different times of year to do different things to be the most water efficient, and they also coordinate the Garden Sense program, which provides free consultations from master gardeners to any residential customer that would like one.
So I know the Russian River Watershed Association has a WaterWise garden plan available. That's more for new gardens and new landscaping as opposed to something for current, because I think that's the biggest draw is current. It's not the new things that are going on, it's what's current. And I don't think a lot of us are aware of exactly how much we need per thing. So it's nice that that's available. And as we get to these stages, we could provide the public with more information so that they could, I mean, Healdsburg did a great job of cutting back, but I think with some kind of guide on exactly what would help with landscape watering would help us reduce even further and keep us out of these stages. So thank you.
I had 2 other questions, and this really comes from the public comment, was somebody asked about tapping into the purple pipe, which I appreciate, wanted to use recycled water. I already know the answer to this, but I think it's important to just, it's come up a couple of times. Can you clarify answer if like a residence could tap into the purple pipe to irrigate their lawns or landscaping?
Thank you, Councilmember Hagley. Right now, there's not a city policy on piping or putting in the plumbing to deliver recycled water to individual homes. So that's something that would fall on, say, City Manager Kay and you all to develop such a policy.
I'll take that a step further and maybe be less positive, but I think it would be exorbitantly expensive for connecting to an underground water system, tracking the usage, getting it into people's irrigation systems. So I don't want to say that day will never come, but just to be realistic, I think it would be very, very hard.
Thank you. Second question is, do these restrictions apply to everybody within the city limits or just city utility water customers?
They would mostly be our water customers, which does fairly closely match the city limits. But to my understanding, we only have the authority to impose the restrictions on our customers.
So there are a number of residents within city limits that have wells, like Grove Street, Chiquita Grove, out, how are we tracking that? Because all the straws are going into the same milkshake, so to speak, that we're all sipping from. Is that something that, not that I'm advocating for, all right, everybody's got to have meters, but I know there's a discussion at the county level. Is there anything there to track to make sure, I mean, if city utility customers are doing their job and doing everything that we can to work within these restrictions, it'd be pretty frustrating if a neighbor who has a well is just running their water nonstop.
So thank you again for the question. The subbasin that we sit on top of right now is currently low potential for being overdrawn. And if that were to change, then the county would definitely, and maybe even the state, intervene on such things. Right now, we don't, to the best of my knowledge, don't have knowledge of where these wells are because they get permitted through the county rather than through the city. So the mechanism to make that is unclear to me right now. So I'm thinking that would be a function of the county.
And that's within the city limits, somebody can get a well by applying to the county without the city having to even knowing.
Such things have happened. However, most of those wells, I imagine, were grandfathered in, or they were in an area that was eventually annexed in, and that's why those persist. I think that our ordinance right now is if you have access to potable water near your home, you have to connect to that potable water source for your home plumbing. For irrigation, on the other hand, I don't believe that that's entirely the case.
Okay.
Director Zimmer, I see you nodding your head. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I'm just agreeing with what Patrick said. There's a process to get a well approved, and if they can connect to potable water within the city, they must connect to potable water within the city.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor.
Does that direct? If they were connected to potable water for their home irrigation, would that preclude them from putting in a well for landscape irrigation?
That I do not know what the process would be if it were irrigation only.
All right.
I can find that out and pass that on.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, do we have any? Yeah, go ahead.
I know City Manager Kay, you are so good at reminding us that our ideas are so exorbitantly expensive and that we have to be living in reality. So I'll just say that since we are in the middle of launching into a land use planning effort that is going to potentially bring utilities for the very first time to a huge swath of Healdsburg south of the bridge, I would love for us to consider evaluating when we bring sewer and potable water utilities to that south entry area, that we consider a purple pipe program, since if you're going to do it all once, you might as well do it all. And also what distributing purple pipe to individual sites could look like if we're distributing everything at that time. I imagine it's kind of a once in a generational opportunity that'll be happening in this generation, hopefully.
Yeah, first off, that feedback's well taken. You're right. When you start fresh, the economics are very different. I did also neglect it when I was being so negative, neglected to say one thing positive, which is we do have fill stations with the recycled water. So it's not as good as turning on the spigot in your front yard, but there is a way for residents who want to access. But to your point, I think that's absolutely something we can look at. I think the overall capacity of recycled water is at some point going to be an issue. So it's something we'd have to think about. There's only so much water that we're running through the system, but absolutely, when you build from scratch, you have some different options.
Very interesting. Do we have any other questions or comments? Once again, I'm fortunate to go last, so all my questions have been answered. But I thank you very much. I think once again, that was a lot of information. It's great to see your work on this. The various plans are very thoughtful and detailed, and it's great to have this sort of preparation in advance of inevitable water shortages. So thank you for that. Okay, so we can move on then to, that would close the public hearing. And we move on to item 8A. Which is the water waste provisions and water storage contingency plan.
Great, so you get me again. I'll wait for the presentation to come up. Okay. Wonderful. Hello again, Mayor and Council members. This item is for the first reading of water waste prohibitions and the water shortage contingency plan ordinance. So the recommended action is the first reading, or to introduce for first reading, the water waste prohibition section and water shortage contingency plan section of the municipal code. The two primary changes being recommended in this ordinance are adding a new section to the municipal code for all the time water waste prohibitions in order to meet other state regulations, and acknowledging the new section as stage 0 in the water shortage contingency plan, and also in the water shortage contingency plan, changing stage 1 from voluntary to mandatory if it's declared, and focusing on more impactful water waste activities. Next slide, please. So we've spoken a little bit about this, but this slide does help give an overview of the non-functional turf regulation. The state passed a regulation regarding non-functional turf, which includes a requirement that water providers adopt it into their own local policies. The regulation prohibits the use of potable water for irrigation of non-functional turf, meaning turf that does not serve a recreational or community gathering purpose, in a phased schedule, beginning with governmental properties, then commercial and industrial properties, and then HOA common areas. Next slide, please. The regulation does include an exception to maintain existing tree health. Trees have lots of benefits, and the state recognized this, but this would be limited to the amount of irrigation needed to ensure the existing tree health and only irrigate for the benefit of those existing trees, not irrigate for the benefit of the surrounding turf. Next slide, please. So staff recommend adding a new code section called water waste prohibitions for all the time water restrictions to comply with the state's non-functional turf regulation. Staff also recommend adding requirements to address large leaks and excessive irrigation runoff in this new water waste prohibitions section of the municipal code. Next slide, please. Now moving into the water shortage contingency plan code section. As a reminder, the current water shortage contingency plan has 6 compounding stages to help the city and the community address a water shortage, whether that be due to drought or a different emergency. And each stage is declared by a council resolution when needed. Next slide, please. So I'll go over some of the recommended changes, and the detailed red lines are also available in the appendice. First of all, we discussed adding a new stage 0 to acknowledge the year-round water waste prohibitions, as well as ongoing outreach and program efforts. Stage 1 is currently voluntary and is being recommended to change to mandatory if it's declared, with a couple other changes to focus on more impactful water waste activities. For example, only using recycled water for construction purposes is being proposed to move up from stage 2 to stage 1, and then restaurants only serving water by request would move from stage 2 or move to stage 2 from stage 1. Other changes include removing the even and odd watering days restriction from stage 1, replacing the restriction to vary run times based on the weather with a clearer restriction to not water within 48 hours of rain, clarifying that walls and fences are considered hard surfaces, requiring that moderate breaks or leaks mandatory be addressed in stage 1, and moving that all leaks and breaks be addressed in stage 2. Additionally, acknowledging that the approved water rate structure implements a water shortage surcharge beginning in stage 2. And next slide, please. The only changes being proposed in stage 3 and stage 4 is to move the restriction on new vegetable gardens from stage 3 into stage 4. And for stage 5, to clarify that hand watering is included in the no outdoor irrigation restriction. And the recommended amendments in this ordinance also clarify throughout that most of the restrictions only apply to potable water. Next slide, please. And this is a reminder of tonight's recommended action for the first reading of the ordinance. And I can take any additional questions.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and just limit it to questions about the presentation before we go to public comment. So do we have any questions about that? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on it. So on the, can you go back to the slide with the percent reductions? Back another. Well, I'll just start talking while you, that's right. 10%, 20%, and it goes down with the stages. I think one of the challenges based on the experience from before was, what does that mean? If we're in stage 1 and a 10% reduction, and then we go to stage 2, oh, alert, 20%. What does that mean? Does that mean one less shower? Does that mean, I think there's got to be a way, and this might be, the communication piece, but I think we need some clarity around that on what that actually means based on, different people's bills. Because, when you look at the bill, it's really helpful. There's that section that talks about your electric and water usage per day, how many gallons per household. And I think we were at like 160 per day, which for a household of 4 with 2 teenagers is not bad, I don't think. But that, is there a way to get that a little clear? Because I feel like that's where some of the frustration was.
Sure. And so the different percent reductions are what the city as a whole needs to achieve. I'll actually emphasize that the residents are never technically asked to reduce by a certain percentage. Residents do need to comply with the actions, no daytime watering, only irrigate 3 times a week. And then beginning in stage 3 is when those residential budgets of a certain amount per person per day is allowed. So residents just need to comply with the restrictions, and then in stage 3 and beyond, meet those per person or stay below those per person limits. Really, the stages are designed that if someone complies with the restrictions and they're like a normal average customer, that is how much their usage would be reduced.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that from last time too. So I think it is important on the messaging that we are focusing on. Here are the things, the watering days and that sort of thing. I think that's all I had for now, and I'll wait till.
Can I ask you a question, Councilmember Higley? You're not really proposing a change to the ordinance or anything. You just
No.
Just a discussion about the strategy of handling when it comes
big
up.
part of my feedback on this item is really related to messaging, and I can cover that afterwards.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with the vegetable restrictions. Because I know if we have gallons per person, and if somebody decides that they would like to use part of that personal water for, tomatoes, $4.50 a pound, getting up there, if somebody wants to make that decision that they would like to use that water for food rather than for other household items, do they have that choice?
So that change of it used to be in stage 3 that no new vegetable gardens would be allowed beginning in stage 3. The recommended action is to move that down to stage 4. So only when we are at a scenario where we need a 40% reduction community-wide. As you saw in the last presentation, in a single year worst case scenario, we're expecting that might be like up to about 38% reduction that's needed. So a stage 4 would be a very extreme scenario. So that is where stage 4, or the recommended action is to take the restriction on no new vegetable gardens, move that from stage 3 into stage 4 so that folks that do want a vegetable garden have a whole nother stage before that is a restriction. But in those stages, all stages of the restriction apply. So they would need to comply with that restriction and comply with the per person per day. If that is something that council feels strongly about, you can give the recommendation that, for example, you want that to be in stage 5 instead of stage 4.
Yeah, I think that's a little tough. And then getting down to it, we're looking at, somebody has fruit trees. You could have a couple of hundred, several decades old fruit tree. Would that fall under the tree ordinance, or would that fall under a vegetable garden? And same with maybe grapes also, if somebody has some grapes on their property.
Yeah, let me actually pull up the exact language, because I do think that one specifically talks about annuals. So trees would not be a new annual planting. That one is a restriction on no new annual plants. So no new annual plants beginning in stage 3, but specifying that no new annual vegetables in stage 4. And then stage 5 is no outdoor irrigation. Doesn't matter what it's for, even trees, that's where recycled water has to be used. And again, if we are in stage 5, that is a dire circumstance where we need at least 50% reduction community-wide.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. In the case of an emergency, like a toxic spill sort of a situation, would we have to move through the various stages, or could we jump ahead to stage 4 or 5 in a situation like that?
Yeah, maybe Samantha can help me clarify that, but I believe that if we determine a certain stage is needed, we can do a resolution that declares the necessary stage and jump to the stage that is necessary.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any other questions before we do public comment? Yeah.
So, I mean, this goes back to 2021, the last time we did this. I really hate the micromanaging of you can plant this and not that. You can water this, but not that. And it looks like in stage 3 and 4 so you're talking about moving restrictions on new planting vegetable gardens from stage 3 to stage 4. And then right below that, it also says stage 3 begins the residential budgets based on a per person per day amount. So the example I gave back then was, well, if I want to forego showers to save my rose bushes, it's on me, but this is my allocation. And at the time, I think we had, you can water like these kind of fruit trees, but not this kind of, so I do struggle with that. Is there a reason we have to have that in there, not just go straight to, here's the allocation and use it how you want?
I'd say the other water shortage contingency plans I've looked at do have these types of restrictions because that is what is comprehensible and enforceable, that this action needs to be taken, or these are the actions we are asking everyone to do. And these are the actions that will help you stay within that budget. So I do think that is why all of the cities and all of the examples I've seen have specific things that are required or prohibited, and then have that guidance of a per person per day in order to achieve the necessary objective.
I would concur. I think some of this stems back to the previous question about how do people know how to set a baseline to either hit a target of gallons per day, or I understand we don't require the percentage, but when we set these targets, an awful lot of people aren't equipped to or don't have the inclination to do that math. But, something that's just in plain English about here's what you need to stop at this point is probably easier for some people to take on. So I think we appreciate the concern and there's some flexibility here, but that's the idea, is just to have simple, digestible tasks that are curtailed.
Okay. At this point, I think I'd like to open up to public comment. Does anybody like to come forward, speak on this item? Welcome.
I'm back, Louis Jordan. It will be quick. If I understood it correctly, then the growth ordinance, because it exists, that's already part of stage 0, if I understood it correctly. Does that also cover commercial properties as well as residential properties? That was just my only other question or concern.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back. Want to go ahead and address that question?
Yeah, could I actually ask for some help in what is covered in the growth management ordinance?
I'll save Scott a walk and say that it does not apply to commercial development.
Yeah, then I think what I would add on there is stage 5 and stage 6 are what would apply to any new development. That beginning in stage 5, the new development must offset its demand, and in stage 6, it must offset its demand at a ratio of 2 to 1.
Thank you. Okay, anybody? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up, and I don't want to have it lost on what Councilman Hagley was saying about the micromanaging. If we could move these vegetables down a stage, if there would be discussion on that one, because that would, it's just we're asking a lot of people, of calculations and so forth. And I think that if somebody really wants to decide that they want to forsake a shower because that tomato is really worth it because they are strictly vegetarian or vegan and they need to have quality that they know, that I think that that's extremely important to quite a few of our residents.
Can I just add, so like a couple things in the context of this, I love that we're moving the no new vegetable gardens to make it, to lessen the restriction that was previously in place. I think that that's helpful for people who are planting a garden during the normal kind of spring and early summer months. I feel like when we get to those curtailments, typically it's later in the year if we know, there's a general time frame of when we get a sense of when it's going to be a drought year. And obviously, if it's like year 2 of a double drought year, that's a trickier situation where I imagine we'd be getting into some of those higher levels of water shortage. But also for it's new gardens and like new tree planting. And so I think what maybe is, hopefully I'm understanding that right, that if people have existing gardens that have already been vegetable gardens, or if they have existing fruit trees or existing grapevines, if it's an annual, those are okay things to continue to water. That's not what this addresses. Is that correct?
Yes. So when I look at the text specifically, stage 4 is in no, apologies. Stage 3 is no installation of new annual plants, flowers, or vines unless watered with only recycled water. And what the recommended change is that vegetables used to be in that same statement, moving vegetables into stage 5, or sorry, in 4, thank you. Moving the vegetables into stage 4. So it would say in stage 4, installation of no new vegetable gardens unless watered with only recycled water. And then stage 5 is where we get to the no outdoor irrigation at all with potable water. All outdoor irrigation must be with recycled water, beginning in stage 5, which is again when we are in a dire scenario needing 50% reduction compared to our normal usage.
So Vice Mayor, do you want to clarify what the suggested change would be if you want to make one?
I'm concerned because from a food safety point of view, that not all vegetables should be watered with recycled water, particularly lettuces and things that are consumed that are not cooked. So that's why if we're moving it down, that's good, but I don't want people to think that, okay, now I'm going to start using recycled water on these vegetables that I'm going to consume raw. If we would have some type of information so that this discussion lets people understand what we're talking about in that, and that's a concern I have of proper use of the recycled water. That could be a guide that if we get to that point, in other words, when we're saying no new vegetable gardens, we would have a guidance to say that, yeah, it's okay to order, if you're going to be cooking broccoli, for example, brackets, that might be okay use for recycled water, but for lettuces and cucumbers and things that will be consumed raw, that there should be some type of warning.
Okay, Councilmember Hagley.
Yeah, I think going back to we're kind of diving into the weeds, no pun intended, because hopefully your vegetable garden has no weeds. But this is the micromanaging stuff that I was struggling with, what was that, 5 years ago now. If you're going to Garrett's and buying some plants to plant, I mean, again, it goes back to we start having residential water budgets starting in stage 3. It almost seems like this falls into the messaging piece where, okay, if you want to have these plants, lettuce, whatever that you want to plant, here's your budget. So it's more of a messaging about, just so you know, did you know the average tomato consumes blah, blah, blah. If you want to plant an almond tree, you might as well, you're going to use all the water Healdsburg has. And so that's where I struggle with that when we have these other things in here that says the residential water budget is 99 gallons. Who cares what they use it for? You have 99 gallons under stage 3. That's your limit per person. So I feel like that's kind of where we should be focusing on, and what people do with it is, let them figure it out and enjoy their garden, or how, this is your allocation. That's kind of where I land on this.
Okay, Councilmember Mitchell has something to say, but hope we're getting to a point where there's some like precise recommendation for a change that we could vote on. So we're not there yet, right? So be thinking about that, but go ahead and.
Thank you. Yeah. I can't help but remember back 5 years ago when we were going through this and we were having this extreme drought and we were having to change, are we going to go from stage 3 to stage 4, and what does that mean? And when does that happen? And, we really struggle with all that. But the point of my comment, I think, is that we were in trouble and we really needed to save water. So the idea of not planting a vegetable garden wasn't, I don't think, on the top of everybody's mind that was a concern. So I do think it's a reasonable thing to, an action item to say in this, for example, in this stage, you don't plant a new vegetable garden. If you've got one, you figure out how to water it, I guess, or you let it die. But that was kind of the choices that we were making, right? And it's a real thing. It was scary, to be honest. And I'm, fortunately it didn't last as long as I thought it would. It felt like we were sort of in this kind of COVID stage too, right? You go through that, then you have the drought. So I think these things are very reasonable. And I wouldn't want to see them change. I think that no new vegetable gardens is a very clear action item for someone to be able to manage, and probably would think of it on their own anyway. But I think these recommendations are clear and good. I would definitely support them as is.
I tend to agree. I think your point is that we're at a really extreme stage when these sort of changes need to be enacted by people. And so, making little adjustments here is a bit like arranging chairs on the Titanic sort of situation. And overall, I think the suggestions are workable and appropriate to those fairly extreme stages of conservation. That being said, I'd like to bring it back to Council Members Hagley and Edwards. And if you want to firm up what the suggestion you have for the change, then we can take it from there. Go ahead, you can go first.
Yeah, I like Councilman Hagley of a gallon per water use is very clear. What you do with it is up to you, and it's much clearer than, well, if you don't do this, you're still there. I think that that's the clarity that I can really support.
David.
I mean, we're kind of getting, again, way down in the weeds in this. I think it's clear to focus on the gallons per day. If it's a restriction, which means it sounds like there's going to be a penalty associated with that. And then what's the enforcement mechanism? I feel like then we're going into the Karen mode of ratting out neighbors and, oh, somebody's planting a garden, go check on them. That's the stuff I don't like, and that tends to pop up. So I feel like the gallons per day seems to make sense, but this isn't, it's not earth shattering to stop the progress of what we're doing here. I'm just sharing the approach should be, here's the gallons and here's some suggestions on, what not to do. Cause I can't remember, when were we in these stages? The like time of the month, was that like
Summer
September?
22?
August? It was.
I do think it was September of
So it was late in
2021.
the season, okay.
Yeah, Councilmember Kelly, please.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion introduced for first reading by title only and waiving further reading of the text and ordinance of the city of Healdsburg, adding sections 13.12.210 wastewater prohibitions to the municipal code and amending section 13.12.220 water shortage contingency plan of the municipal code.
I second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Higley.
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yes.
Mayor Harrod.
Yes.
Mayor, I have a number of comments I did want to make on this.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple things, just as I was reading this, it, relived what we were dealing with back then. But I think it's really important because we're not in the crisis of a drought right now. I mean, we're very aware of it. A couple of thoughts that I had is, check your bill now to see how much you're using per person per day. The current bill that we have, and I know we're getting a better billing system, shows how much you're using per day. And my example is we have 4 in our household. I just take that and divide by 4. And where we are today, we're below these 74 gallons per person per day already. And the reason I'm saying that isn't to say, oh, pat on the back, I'm letting my grass die in the back. But I think to kind of share that for the majority of residential customers, it is manageable to be able to reduce water. And the time to look at that is now, and look at your bill when you're not under this pressure and thinking about every little thing. And part of that is because of the comments. I read all the comments, and there were a lot of comments that brought back a lot of memories of the concern and the fear that was out there. There was one about somebody made a comment. They still have buckets in the shower to use to flush the toilet. That's great that they're conserving water, but I think there's this fear that I think isn't quite needed at this stage. And I think just even when we get to that, because last time we did these stages, some of our messaging was very extreme going back to COVID, where there was a lot of fear that was put out there to try to get people to really okay, you need to conserve water, you need to wear masks, do these other things. And I think to reduce the panic and anxiety that people feel when we get to these stages, it's similar to the evacuations with the fires, where once you have an understanding, here's my evacuation zone. Oh, the fire's over there. Evacuation warning before an order. People start to understand that. I think it's really important for us as a city to stay on top of that messaging once we get closer to that. Let's see. And then this kind of goes to our public information officer. I think it'd be valuable, again, based on some of the comments that came up, is to have periodic, did you know, or, types of posts, or add to the city manager update, maybe something that's educational that we're seeing, just even whether it's district elections, but specific to this, the golf course, uses recycled water. New apartment water usage versus old multifamily and single family. Some of those things keep coming up about these misconceptions about the new buildings that are coming into town. Oh, they're sucking all the water. Well, that's not really the case because they're way more energy or water efficient. And let's see. And so I think those are kind of my main comments, that I think the messaging is going to be a big part, and we need to avoid the fear tactics. There's a lot of people that were really impacted with fear and anxiety about just not even using, not flushing the toilet for a week or whatever. And we chuckle now, but that's real fear that people had, and it would drive them nuts when they would, somebody has a broken sprinkler and it's water and it's leaking on the road, and just lose their mind. So I think from a mental kind of take a deep breath kind of thing, I think it's important for us as a city to be proactive with that messaging as we're starting to see this, and what each of these stages really means, and what the impact is, and what you can do to manage it. So a little long-winded, but those were most of my comments. Again, I appreciate that we're doing this now, not in the throes of a drought. And the fine tuning, we all have memories from that 5 years ago. So thank you for doing this, and I'm glad we're doing it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to take a 10-minute recess before we jump into budget. We will reconvene at 8:18.
All right, thank you, everybody. Welcome back. We're moving on now to item 8B, the fiscal year 2026-27 and 27-28 budget and capital improvement plan adoption. Finance Director Katie Edgar, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Katie Edgar, Finance Director, here tonight to present the fiscal year 2026-27 and 27-28 budget for adoption. The recommended action tonight is to receive a presentation from city staff on the final proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27 and 27-28, and to approve 3 resolutions. The first resolution is adopting the fiscal year 26-27 budget. The second is adopting the 27-28 budget. And the final resolution is adopting the 5-year capital improvement plan covering the fiscal years of 26-27 through 30-31. Next slide, please. Tonight's presentation will start with a quick overview of proposed staff changes to the general fund and Measure T budgets as a result of new information received after the May 11th budget workshop. Next, we will review a quick highlight of the capital improvement program before diving back into the Community Services Fund review. The Community Services Department has compiled several options in response to Council's direction to identify $250,000 in operational costs that could be reallocated towards capital projects and parks deferred maintenance. We are seeking Council direction if any of the 5 identified operational reductions should be included in the adopted budget tonight. We are also seeking Council direction on several other options to pursue for future consideration in context of the larger Council goal of developing a financial strategy for the Community Services Fund. Next slide, please. The total proposed revenues in the general fund are $20.2 million in fiscal year 26-27 and $21.6 million in fiscal year 27-28. There are 3 changes that were made to the general fund revenues after the May 11th budget workshop. First, staff received additional information from the county regarding the final disbursement of the residual receipts revenue in the current fiscal year that increased the estimates to close by approximately $260,000. Applying the anticipated 5% year-over-year tax roll growth that's associated with new properties coming online and the reassessment of properties at the time of sale, the total property tax revenues increased across both proposed budgets. Additionally, staff reallocated development fee revenue from the Streets Fund to the General Fund to align with expense shifts associated with the Public Works Department staff time. Finally, as a result of the additional revenues anticipated, the total Measure T transfer in for fiscal year 27-28 was reduced by $1 million. However, I do want to note that the fiscal year 27-28 budget is still relying on the use of fund balance and $1.7 million in Measure T funding, which is still significantly higher than in previous years and indicative of the remaining gap between the general fund revenue base and operating expenditures. Next slide, please. General fund expenditures total $20.7 million in fiscal year 26-27 and $21.9 million in fiscal year 27-28. There have been no changes to the general fund expenditures since the May 11th budget workshop. Next slide, please. Overall, the general fund is anticipated to meet the 30% operating reserve target, is not proposing any withdrawals from the Pension Stabilization Fund, and is projected to end fiscal year 27-28 with an unrestricted fund balance of approximately $98,000. However, I would like to bring your attention to the change in fund balance line here, which illustrates that despite the infusion of Measure T funding, expenses are still greater than revenues in both years, signaling that we need to proceed with caution on the road ahead. Next slide, please. Expenditures in the Measure T fund for 26-27 total $2.7 million and $4.6 million in fiscal year 27-28. Staff propose reallocating the Measure T funds previously slated for the general fund to backfill the approximate $70,000 of development fee revenue that was reallocated from the Streets Fund to the general fund, reduce the drainage operating fund deficit with an infusion of approximately $230,000 each fiscal year, and fund the Sherman Street retaining wall project totaling $170,000. Next slide, please. Fiscal year 26-27 includes $17.3 million in new capital project appropriations, and fiscal year 27-28 includes a total of $13.2 million, supporting a total of 41 capital projects across the 2-year budget.
The biennial budget leverages $3.9 million in grant funding and represents over $18 million in utility investments for water, wastewater, and electric infrastructure. Over the 5-year capital improvement plan, including the currently adopted budget that is anticipated to be carried forward on projects that will continue in the upcoming fiscal year, the city plans to invest over $155 million in capital projects. Next slide, please. Moving on to community services. This chart shows revenue and expense trends from fiscal year 16-17 through the proposed 27-28 biennial budget. Similar to the chart reviewed at the May 11th special meeting, this version focuses on the relationship between revenues and expenses. Over the 12-year period, both revenues and expenses grew by more than $5 million, reflecting the continued growth and expansion of community services. Next slide, please. This timeline provides important context for the evolution of the Community Services Fund and helps explain the financial trends shown on the previous slide. In 2004, Healdsburg voters officially restricted the city's 10% transient occupancy tax for the purpose of funding community services. 4 years later, in 2008, the city entered into a long-term lease for the Foss Creek School site, marking the opening of the community center. In 2014, the city purchased the property, securing the long-term future of this important community asset. Also in 2014, the city partnered with the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District and Land Paths to facilitate public access to the Fitch Mountain open space. Ownership of the property was officially transferred to the city in 2017, making the city responsible for long-term stewardship and ongoing maintenance costs. That same year, the city entered into a long-term lease agreement with Corazon Healdsburg, providing community center space in exchange for in-kind services rather than direct rent payments. In 2018, Hotel Trio opened with 122 rooms, becoming the largest hotel in Healdsburg at the time and representing the single largest addition to the city's TOT generating lodging inventory. Also in 2018, the city launched the Arts Master Planning process, supported by one-time funding investment and extensive community engagement. Similar to the Fitch Mountain Partnership, the city worked with the Ag and Open Space District and Land Paths to facilitate public access to the Healdsburg Ridge open space. While the partnership began in 2008, ownership was officially transferred to the city in 2019, adding another significant open space asset and its associated maintenance responsibilities. In 2019, the city launched the DASH program, Drivers Assisting Seniors in Healdsburg, through the lease of 2 vehicles, expanding transportation services for older adults. The following year, the Community Services Department began waiving field use fees for the Healdsburg Prune Packers, a practice that continues today. In 2021, Montage Healdsburg opened with 130 rooms, surpassing Hotel Trio as the city's largest hotel and further expanding the TOT base. Later that year, the city launched the inaugural Merry Healdsburg holiday celebration, creating the extravagant tradition that is recognized today. Community services continued to expand further in 2022. The city launched the Senior Bistro program at the Senior Center as a grant-funded pilot and has continued the program with subsidized service 3 days per week. Following completion of the Arts Master Plan in the fiscal year 22-24 budget, the department established the Arts and Culture Division and provided ongoing funding to implement plan recommendations. During the same period, the city enhanced its financial assistance program by increasing eligibility and expanding the sliding fee scale. Additionally, the Community Services Department assumed both the financial and operational liability for the annual fireworks program, previously managed by the American Legion. In 2023, the city completed renovations to support a new preschool program and entered into a fully subsidized long-term lease agreement with the YWCA for its operation. The Community Services Department also initiated a deferred maintenance program by identifying and prioritizing critical deferred maintenance needs across community facilities and parks. Initial funding totaled $385,000. However, only $210,000 was expended, with the remaining $175,000 being reallocated to address operational cost overruns in that fiscal year. Collectively, these milestones illustrate some of the significant expansions of community services programs, facilities, partnerships, and operational responsibilities over the past 2 decades, helping to explain the growth in both revenues and expenditures reflected in the Community Services Fund. Next slide, please. At the May 11th budget workshop, City Council directed staff to identify $250,000 in operational cost reductions that could be redirected to capital improvements and deferred parks maintenance. In response, the Community Services Department has developed 5 potential service reduction options for Council's consideration, totaling approximately $165,000 in annual savings. While some of these options may be more challenging to consider than others, each represents a clearly identifiable component of the service enhancements and program expansions discussed on the previous slide. The proposed budget before Council this evening remains unchanged from the budget presented at the May 11th workshop. Staff is seeking Council direction during budget adoption whether any combination or all of the following operational reductions should be implemented and the resulting savings reallocated to capital and deferred maintenance priorities. The first option proposed by the Community Services Department is to discontinue the Community Fireworks Show in July 2027 and 2028, resulting in an estimated savings of $50,000 annually. The second option is to reduce the size of the holiday tree utilized for Mary Healdsburg celebrations in December of 2026 and 2027, generating approximately $25,000 in annual savings. The third option is to reduce the Senior Bistro program from 3 days a week to 2 days per week, which is estimated to save approximately $35,000 annually. The fourth option is to discontinue the land path stewardship contract for the Healdsburg Ridge and Fitch Mountain open space preserves. This action would reduce annual costs by approximately $22,000. However, certain stewardship and maintenance responsibilities would need to be absorbed by city maintenance staff to ensure that the city continues to meet its obligations as the property owner. The final option is to eliminate the annual fire road maintenance at the Fitch Mountain Preserve, generating an estimated savings of $25,000 per year. Collectively, these 5 options reduced annual operating expenditures by approximately $165,000 and would provide additional funding capacity for capital projects and deferred maintenance needs. Next slide, please. This chart presents total program expenditures using the same format reviewed at the May 11th budget workshop, including the estimated allocation of full-time personnel and administrative support costs across each program area. The current expense column reflects the expenditures included in the budget proposed for adoption this evening. The reduced expense column illustrates the impact of implementing all 5 operational reduction options discussed on the previous slide. If all 5 options were adopted, the resulting expenditure reductions would be concentrated in 3 program areas. Parks and Trails would be decreased by approximately 2%, Senior Services would be decreased by approximately 3%, and Special Events would decrease by approximately 9%. Next slide, please. The Community Services Department has identified 4 additional operational reduction strategies that could be evaluated for future implementation. However, there is currently insufficient time and information to fully assess, coordinate, and implement these options as part of tonight's budget adoption. Staff is seeking Council direction on whether to pursue further analysis of any or all of the options presented. The first option is to explore transferring the ACES and Club H after-school programs to the Boys and Girls Club. The second option is to evaluate alternative operating models for the swim center in coordination with the school district's planned reconstruction of the facility. The third option is to assess alternative operating models for the Senior Bistro program, including potential changes to vendors, service delivery methods, and pricing structures. The fourth option is to review the city's special events program and consider limiting or reducing the number of events offered. While the city events vary in scope and financial commitment, each additional event generates some level of operational and financial impact. Further evaluation would help determine potential cost savings and service implications associated with reducing event offerings. Next slide, please. Finally, staff are seeking additional Council direction regarding the scope of cost recovery measures that should be evaluated for future consideration. Consistent with state law, program fees are generally based on the cost of providing services, while facility fees are typically established based on market rates. Any adjustments to existing fees would require additional cost analysis, market research, and stakeholder review. To support Council's ongoing goal of developing a long-term financial strategy for the Community Services Fund, the Community Services Department has identified several categories of fees and revenue opportunities that could be evaluated to increase cost recovery and generate additional funding.
The first category is recreation program fees. These include community services operated programs such as adult sports leagues, including soccer and softball, and youth programs such as Camp Healdsburg and Building Blocks. This category does not include programs operated by independent contractors, where fees are established directly by the service provider. The second category is facility fees. This includes a range of uses from long-term leases at the Able to Luna Multicultural Center, which have historically been considered and approved by council on a case-by-case basis, to field use fees and day use facility rental fees that are established through the city's master fee schedule. The third category is special event fees, which could include both general site use fees and event-specific charges associated with city-supported or city-permitted events. The final category is the pursuit of additional sponsorship opportunities for community services programs and events to offset operating costs and expand available resources. Staff are seeking council direction on whether to pursue additional research and analysis in any of these areas and return with recommendations for potential fee adjustments, revenue enhancements, and sponsorship strategies for future council consideration. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions about the presentation specifically? Right, I'll go ahead.
Can you pull up the slide that has the community services budget that's like by categories? I don't know what number it is, but probably like 5 or 7 slides ago. I could pull them up on my laptop too and give you a slide number. I can try. Yes, that one. So I was curious, and these are there's certainly like a huge range, right, of facility operations at 62,000 to like 3 categories that are well, over $1 million. I wanted to get a better sense of kind of the breakdown of some of those because they're such broad categories, and I know we don't have time necessarily to kind of get into it, but I feel like understanding, I think the Senior Bistro program is probably included in senior services, but we don't know what that is as like a standalone item, or, recreation programs, how much of that is soccer versus something else. And so I feel like for some of those larger categories, we generally have a sense, I think, of special events because we see the special events from a permitting perspective, and the annual calendar of special events is like helpful to understand what level of participation city staff is involved with those events. But I think it would be helpful to have a more detailed presentation of that because I think for me, seeing the small recommended incremental changes that are like 2% reduction at parks and trails or 3% reduction in senior services, like that, to me, given I think what I've heard from my colleagues like during goal setting and other times with respect to how much we want to be contributing towards maintaining and capital improvements for existing facilities and then building the parks that we've been talking about, it feels like this is a good start at like getting our hands around some of the information, but I don't feel like I have enough information.
Can I just maybe potentially steer the conversation? I'm struggling about the public comment thing because this is just clarifying questions. We're sort of jumping into it. That's okay. We'll get to that in a minute. But
sorry, my question is when can we get more detailed information about this?
And what I'm thinking is, there's a lot of small suggestions here. Short tree, tall tree, little things like that. A lot of things that I don't think we really want to dive into right here and now. We're going to get back into community services budget at a deeper level. That's kind of what you're asking for. And I think I just want to get the council's sense on how much we want to parse through these suggestions right here now, or whether we want to just
be grateful to have them in front of us so we can start to think about this. But really, all these pieces are woven together and deserve a deeper conversation. That's my sense of that. But I'd just like to get some feedback on how we want to proceed with this conversation tonight. So go ahead and start with Councilmember Hagley on that question.
Yeah, I kind of look. I appreciate the suggestions. I agree with Councilmember Kelly. It's kind of hard when you're looking at 2% here, 3% there. Like every dollar counts. But we have a very, very heavy lift coming up when we're looking at community services that I think is going to involve some very difficult conversations. There's going to be a lot of things where people are going to be passionate about one thing or another. And so I'm inclined to support the budget as proposed, and then also look at some of these, for future consideration, kind of the question was which ones. I think all of these, there's a lot to consider here. But I do like having the initial brush on some of these things, which will help inform, especially like the Foley Pavilion with private events. And, as that starts to come up, what is the potential revenue source on this? Is it more than we were expecting or not? That might offset some of these things, whether it's 2 days, 3 days, 1 day, the one dash car, no, switch to an Uber. We could go way down a rabbit hole on this. So I'm inclined to support the budget that was worked on and presented previously with an eye toward updates or changes that could come down the road as we start to get some of these blanks get filled in, because that was part of our goals for the next couple of years was to look at parks bond, looking at the community service. So I think I like the direction that staff is recommending on some of these, on the different things to explore. I think to Councilmember Kelly's point, once those are expanded out, there may be some additional things that come up. But for tonight, I would support the budget as proposed, knowing that these are going to come back for discussion for our goals that we set.
Okay, Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, I think the detail that Councilmember Kelly is talking about, I'm not even sure. We've already reviewed a lot of this before. We've got a lot of it is salaries and whatnot, right? So there were a certain level of things that we can't really control. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we also don't, expenses are categorized in line items for like the charts that we saw before, salaries, operational expense, contracted services expense. We don't actually have a breakdown by how much of operational is going to soccer programs versus softball programs. Our accounting software does not currently track that. So we could absolutely work with the community services department to try to produce estimates of how much is going to each kind of more detailed of programmatic level like that. Otherwise, kind of those breakdowns in the charts that we really explored at the May 11th meeting is all that we have currently available in our system.
And so, yeah, I figured, I remembered going through those, and I would support the budget too, as well as it is now. I think I appreciate the suggestions. I know that we asked for $250,000. I don't think that any of the holiday tree, this doesn't really feel like getting to the heart of what we're really trying to do here. These are just, it feels like they should have been included in reduction in the budget to begin with or something. But what I really want to see, and I think this is what we're trying to set here, is looking forward. How do we get our arms around this, and how do we talk about, cost recovery? We've talked about that. We want that, and that kind of thing. I think that's the key, sort of a reset, maybe hitting a reset button at this point. But this, and you look at the capital budget, there's nothing in there for community services, right? For these years. And we're still there. So, but I think these suggestions aren't, it's a drop in the bucket. It's not going to really do much. And I'm pretty sure that we wouldn't get consensus on the fireworks thing anyway. So, or even the senior thing. I think these are things that need more conversation, in-depth discussion.
I would just add that there's, it's sort of an apples and oranges thing when you're looking at something like moving ACES to the Boy School. That's $615,000 versus $25,000 for the tree height. To use an exaggerated example, those are a lot of big decisions there, and they're obviously one's going to be more impactful than the other. So how we proceed with this, and how we order the conversation from one item to the next is going to affect what we do when it comes to the smaller stuff. So
I think we still need to just look at this as an opportunity going forward to look at where we're headed in the budget wise, and look at, we've talked about all these things. I think for now, I think the budget should be passed the way it is. I would vote for that. But also with the caveat that these things will be looked at in the future.
Director Thednick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. We actually came up with a list of 41 different options for cost reductions and revenue increases. And as you go through that process, some of them are not realistic. Are we going to cut the financial assistance program? Are we going to charge user fees? And that was in about a week of time. And that totaled about $1 million of change. And so there's the ability to get there, but in this time frame and the track we're on, we won't be able to give you good information to make good decisions. There will be tough decisions, and I think some of you will have your own things that you want to protect, but we've already started that, and I think I shared with you, we have an entire board of things that we don't have to do. But if we don't do them, they don't happen, or somebody else will. So I feel like there were a few comments like we didn't address council's concerns, and we're working on that. I just think the time is so short to provide you with really good data so you can make good decisions. So, which is what we want to do.
Thank you.
So my question, when I was trying to ask Director Edgar about when we would have more information, and I guess my question for City Manager Kay and Director Themig, I have concerns about adopting a 2-year budget that basically is saying, this looks great, let's do this for the next 2 years. Because I feel like we are there needs to be a course correction so that we can prioritize the deferred maintenance issues, the capital issues, and our goals of putting more money towards potentially for a bond or potentially for the new parks. And I don't see that happening in what we're being asked to adopt tonight. So what is the best way forward to be able to have those conversations? Really, I don't think it's us up here being like, do we do 2 days a week of this or 3 days a week? How tall will the tree be? I think it's you guys coming back to us with something meatier than reducing the size of the holiday tree and saving $25K a year when we know the budget that we're asking to adopt is like a $9 million community services budget or $8 million. Like that, $25,000 for a tree size is a drop in the bucket for a $9 million budget. And so what do we do from here?
Yeah. Thank you,
Sorry,
City Manager.
okay
Yeah,
to
what's the path forward with these big intertangled questions?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback. I think we share a lot of your concerns. The struggle that we've had that I think you see here is when you start to lift the hood on this thing, it's hard to find much that isn't going to take a pretty complicated process of evaluation and analysis to figure out what we do, or B, hitting some sort of a third rail or some sacred thing to some interest group. And that's why, as we suggest, we want to give you the right information to make the hard decisions, and we'll be there right with you to do that. That's been the challenge. We haven't seen a short path from A to B with the time available to, believe me, I would have liked to have given you more modular with more zeros options in the short term where we might get to a number. And 250 was arbitrary. I just tell you right now, I think in the not too distant future, we need to be dedicating a lot more than that to capital. That's my recommendation. And yet, to your question, how do we get there? We, as noted, we have in our goals to do a financial plan. To me, that's a multi-year plan. I don't think we're clearing the kind of money in the short term, whether we do it tonight in this budget or we do it for, the mid-year adjustment that we do in 6 months. This is going to be a multi-year process, I think, to get there. A combination of reducing costs, controlling future cost growth, and simply earmarking future revenue growth to reach a certain target number. That is going to be a pretty complex process. My expectation is we don't have a date picked out, pretty quickly after the July recess. We're digging into some of these items and trying to put together what I imagine to be probably a 5-year forecast. I do understand the concern, just take it back to the question, because I share it, of adopting a budget right now. We always amend budgets. We can amend budgets. I don't have a way to kind of really move the needle in the time we have to adopt this budget, absent an arbitrary reduction in one of these expenditure lines. And I'm not sure that really gets us there, because then we just have to go back in the room and kind of figure out, well, what does this mean in programmatic terms? So I know it's sort of unsatisfying to not have that solved as we pass a budget, but we've spent a lot of time trying to put our heads together on what might that look like. And we agree the options in front of you are A, small, and B, kind of unsatisfying and challenging in some ways. And it's the slide 2 further where I think we have identified a few things where we think we can move the needle on 6 figures. We are, and so to the extent that the council wants to, feedback on that is valuable, or I'll just take it as consensus that the council's interested in at least discussing all of those things. You saw on a slide a couple of meetings ago, right, we're not saving 600,000 if the ACES program gets transferred, because a whole lot of revenue comes back, but it's probably 6 figures. A nonprofit running the pool is what they do in Sonoma and other communities. That pool is very expensive and getting more expensive, and a new pool won't be any cheaper. I don't know that we can solve that. We certainly can't give you a number tonight, but that could be a 6-figure change. So there's a few things on that list where I think we get there. Even then, it'll probably take a half dozen things. We're game to move on those with a sense of purpose. I don't think we have a path to turn that into a number tonight.
Go ahead.
If I could add, I think to Councilmember Kelly's question, I think the budget right now, if you adopt it tonight, kind of locks us in through the end of the year. It's going to cover special events. The good thing is we start the new year process in usually November, December. City Council sets the events for the following year. That's your opportunity to implement site fees. That's your opportunity to decrease partnership sponsor levels. And that's our opportunity to look at kind of programs for next fiscal year. So I think adopting the budget really does probably lock us in through the end of this year, but we'll be able to work on that over the fall, and you'll be able to make decisions, and we'll be able to make cuts or fee increases or whatever it is for 2027.
That's helpful.
I just wanted to respond with respect to the 4 suggestions for future consideration, not the other line items. I think all of those should be explored. And I know we're starting to get more inquiries from organizations who want to use the Foley Pavilion for their fundraisers. And so as someone like, for example, like local community nonprofit orgs who are charging, a ticket premium and using it to raise money, which we want those organizations to be successful. But I also think we're undercutting our other facilities like the Villa Chanticleer or Taman Golf Course, where nonprofits would normally be paying to rent those spaces. And so we're giving them a huge benefit so that they can, raise $100,000, $200,000 using the Foley Pavilion for free. And so I do have concerns about us not being able to support the Villa or support Taman Golf Course for what they built into their budgets if we're allowing groups that would, like the Rotary Club has their crab feed at the Villa every year. Well, now they may ask us, can we move that to Foley because other organizations get to use it for free and use it for their fundraisers. And so I think it's going to become an issue we have to think about from like a ticketing perspective for the Foley Pavilion, because as someone who used to rent private space to put on those events, I'm sure with other organizations you guys are involved in, those site fees for like larger facilities in our community, you're paying $5,000, $10,000 as a nonprofit to rent Bacchus Landing or another, L'Art Trioni or another winery that has a big venue. And we have this amazing asset, but it's not necessarily, I think for community groups who are using it as fundraisers, that's like another thing compared to like a community concert, the farmer's market, movies, et cetera. And I know we also are utilizing the community center site for all these cars that are parking there. I don't know if we're charging fees for those orgs to be able to, or those businesses to be able to park cars there, but I think that's a decision that was made somewhere along the line that we're definitely hearing about it in the community, that our basketball courts are now a parking lot for employees of sites that are underparked, and that's why they're parking there.
So first of all, we're only in phase 1 of the operation of the pavilion. We intend to have an entire fee schedule, and that was one of the 41 revenue opportunities. So that is coming.
Great.
It's not there yet. As far as the community center parking, we have parking lot fees that those groups pay. Montage, Appalachians, whomever it might be. The only ones we don't charge are the seniors. When they take a trip from there, they don't, obviously, they don't pay. So absolutely our intent is to have a more comprehensive fee schedule that's associated with phase 2 of the Foley Family Community Pavilion operation.
Sounds good. And I think with respect to the options for future consideration, I think for the swim center, if it's a model that the community will still be able to access the pool and utilize it, but that the city is not staffing it day to day, or that there's a different model, I think that's worth exploring, especially if other cities are doing it. I know having a community pool is a critical asset, so I'm not saying we don't have it available, but just maybe we're not running it.
The great thing, their consultant, Stu Isaac, does a lot of this type of work in California. He's very familiar with the pension challenges and the hours limitations and things like that that make it difficult. He's actively talking to nonprofits in the area about potential partnerships, and I think the district is open to that as well. Cool. So again, something more that'll come forward, but we don't have all the info yet.
Yep.
And I think just respect to the other one for budget consideration, I'm okay to actually talk about eliminating or looking at these. The one thing that I do have concerns about that I just want Chief Boaz to weigh in on is eliminating the fire road maintenance at Fitch Mountain Preserve, because I know there's like wildfire risk on the mountain and we often use that fire road, not just for hiking, but for fire preparedness.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Council. We've done a lot of work on the fire roads in the last few years, and they're in pretty good shape right now, very passable. Occasionally, we'll have trees down, which we usually go up and clear by ourselves with our UTV. We go up there with some saws and clear those. I think the vegetation management work we've done up there has helped as well. But I would have concerns about doing that for a long term because it is a source of revenue we rely on. But I think we're okay for the time being, unless there's some type of a disaster that washes out the road in certain places, in which case we can deal with it as it arises. I'd caution doing it long term, but I think we're okay for now. It's in good shape. It's passable. We've done a lot of work on it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And then for the land path stewardship, is that around its veg management or its pathway work? Is it both?
I'm not really sure what land paths does. Do you know the scope of work for land paths?
The work that Land Pass does is implementing our management plan. So they do volunteer activities. Primarily, they do some natural resources type programs, but it's really the natural resource management. So it's the broom removal, it's the fixing the washouts that happen, and a lot of that's done through community, through partnerships and volunteer opportunities. For the fire road, we actually completed all the work on the actual Hilltop Road access on the east and south side of the mountain. This is to continue work on the other side to help make it more manageable longer term. Doesn't have to be done this year. Fire knows Hilltop's always available as long as there's no major issues, and so far it's worked out really well.
Sorry, so which road are we spending $25,000 a year on?
To continue down the Villa side of the mountain, you know, there's been quite a bit of erosion along that slope. There's areas that erosion continues that needs to be fixed over time. But the Hilltop Road side, which is the primary emergency access, has been completed up to the summit.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just ask if there's any public comment before we proceed. So let me open it up to public comment. If there's anybody who wants to speak on this item. I'm not seeing none. We'll bring it back. Thank you for that. Were you, I'm not sure that you were at a stopping place with your.
Yeah, I'll just
your
say
line.
that
Okay.
for the things that we're being asked to consider, the fireworks show, reducing the size of the holiday tree, reducing the senior bistro from 3 days down to 2 days per week, eliminating land path stewardship, and eliminating the fire road maintenance fund for like the grand total cost savings of,
$165,000 a year.
I think that this is, I just don't feel like this is, I think it's going to upset a lot of folks. And I don't think it's going to move the needle on a $8 or $9 million budget. And so I would like to see more substantive suggestions from staff come back to us around how we can take a bigger bite out of this so that we can invest the money in the capital improvements and the deferred maintenance that really needs to happen.
I agree. Councilmember Hagley, you had something?
I was going to make a motion. I agree. And I was going to make a motion.
I haven't heard from Vice Mayor in a little bit, so let's hear from him. And
Yeah, I'm really glad that there's a larger list that Director Theming is working on, because today is a horrible day to talk about cutting senior lunches, particularly since HR 1 went into effect today, and somewhere in this county, 4,500 less people will have food benefits. And that is a program that I know that is appreciated and used and is extremely helpful for those of us who are on fixed budgets in this county. And I know that that is a program that sets us apart, and it's a vital one, particularly going forward. So look forward to the larger list of things that would really not affect people personally in their food security.
Thank you. Good point. Go ahead.
I would like to move that we adopt the fiscal year 2026 to 2027 budget. Do you want these all separate, or can they all be in together?
You go ahead. You can do them all together.
And I would also like to move that we approve a resolution adopting fiscal year 2027 to 28 budget, as well as approve a resolution adopting the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2026 to 2031.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Higley,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes?
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Edwards,
Yes.
Mayor Harrod.
Yes. Thank you very much. And so concludes our budget process for this time. With a huge, meaningful, and thoughtful punt on the community services piece. So I think that's really going to be valuable for the community, for us to do a lot of homework and do a deep dive on that stuff and sort it out. And I'm sure we'll be productive when that time comes.
I just wanted to add a comment that I think We are in such a great financial position compared to a lot of cities right now who are looking at trying to expand or adopt a new sales tax or looking at other forms of revenue because they're looking at a very dire picture with massive staff layoffs and really challenging circumstances. So I want to just caveat what I'm about to say is that I think I think our staff has done a great job. I think we've been very fiscally conservative in a positive way. And I think we have a lot to be appreciative of and proud of as a city. I do think that because we run our own utility, we have our own police department, we don't contract with the sheriff, we have our own fire department, we're not in a fire district. Like Healdsburg is very unique in a lot of ways in how massive our budget is compared to cities our size. And we have all of our own, we staff a fire department, we staff a police department. A lot of cities don't. And so I think because of that, I would just like to suggest that as we kind of move down in a direction of kind of headwinds financially and otherwise, it may be of interest to look at creating budget subcommittees of council members if there is an interest in deep diving on any of these things and coming back, giving staff the ability to kind of iterate and have conversations. That's what a lot of other cities do. They have committee work that happens in between council meetings or as the budget is getting developed so that people can be in the room when the 41 ideas are being thrown on the wall to see what, not just from a staffing perspective, but what are the political ramifications and the community ramifications. We have an amazing staff. Not all of them live in Healdsburg. Not all of them understand like the realities of who's utilizing certain services. And so I just wanted to throw that out there that as this continues to evolve, it might be of interest to have some subcommittee work so that there's things that we are able to communicate about in between. You know, we're not going to see another budget item for many, many months. We have maybe 2 hours in a budget meeting prior to this, an hour and a half tonight, and then we just adopted, $90 million plus a capital improvement program of hundreds of millions of dollars of public money. That's a lot of decisions to be made in 3.5 hours of council time. So I wanted to throw that out there that there isn't a lot happening. We're not, for the public who may be listening, we're not sitting in meetings other than this, having deeper dive conversations. Our staff, who's amazing, is working on this and bringing it to us, and we look at it in kind of a limited chunk. So to the extent there's more interest in doing that, I would support.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure that certainly in terms of the community services piece, it's that city manager is going over lots of different ways that could be cut, diced up so that we can tackle it, because there's a lot of different pieces there. The future parks, there's small items cut or expand. There's there's an overriding goal of deferred maintenance and all these different things, and big decisions about ages in the pool and so on that we've touched on just a little bit. So how do we break that all up? I'm sure that's a challenge for him and his staff, and that is a really good suggestion to be included in those considerations. So probably when this does come back to us, we're going to have to make a strategy decision on how we actually go through all these factors, right? And so it would make sense. I'm not saying yes or no to your suggestion right away, but I think it's a good one. But I do value your point. Compared to other cities, we're doing really well, and it's a testament to our staff who is really consistent and thorough in their work on our finances, and have been for a long time, and it puts us in a really great position, and something that I think we should be very grateful for. Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to 8C, City Council Subcommittee to interview Planning Commission applicants. City Clerk Renee Allen.
Good evening, mayors and council members. I don't have a formal presentation for you. The Planning Commission recruitment closes this Thursday. In hopes that we receive enough applicants, I'm asking that you appoint a subcommittee to conduct interviews next week so we can appoint a planning commissioner at the next meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. So can you, so the staff report said that we've received 2 applicants.
That's correct.
And the application period is open till the 7th, right? Or the 4th?
Till Thursday.
Okay. And then what happens if we don't get, are we just moving forward with the 2 for now and reopen the 1?
So there are 3 seats up for 3 vacancies coming. So if we don't receive enough applications to fill those 3 seats, we would extend the application period to see if we can get any more, which would push out the appointment to the first meeting in August. If that was the case, the current planning commissioners would sit until new commissioners were appointed.
So, okay. And I'm assuming some of the, like, are you allowed to say who's applied so far or?
Sure. We have received 1 application from incumbent Jonathan Perlman, a second one from James Gentry.
Okay. Thank you.
And I did ask the 3 incumbents the terms are ending. I believe 2 of them are reapplying and 1 is retiring. And I would like to suggest that for the one that is retiring, we honor that person. I'll let it be a surprise when the time comes.
Agreed. Okay, so who has interest in serving in this subcommittee? I wasn't able to participate in the last group for the library commissioner. I'd be happy to join this one if, but open to any other suggestions? Councilmember Kelly's raised her hand. No interest? Can we have a motion then?
Public comment?
Yeah, okay. I'll open that up to public comment. Thank you.
I would like
All right.
to make a motion that Mayor Herod and Councilmember Kelly are on the subcommittee to interview the applicants.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Thank you. All right. Move on to activities over the last 2 weeks. Who would like to go first on that? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So on the 21st, we had a lot going on, ribbon cuttings and everything, parade. Also attended the lunch and learn at the L&M, which was great to get an update and kind of hear how things are going there and looking at what the future looks like. From the 20th Wednesday to the 24th, I was basically at the fairgrounds at Rec Park nonstop. And it was such a great experience. Just loved seeing all of it. Thank you to the city. The bathrooms were open. I walked around, checked the trash situations. The dumpsters were delivered early on Wednesday. And just overall, a lot of good feedback that I heard from people at the fair. I'm part of the FFA livestock auction and everything else. 27th, Councilmember Edwards and Mayor Herod and I were able to meet with Tom Steyer, who's running for governor. And I was able to, in the short little time that you have with somebody that's basically drinking from a water hose on a campaign for governor, kind of impressed upon him that our rates here in Healdsburg are 50% less than PG&E, which stuck with him. And so did invite him, if he makes it through the primary, to come back to Healdsburg and tour some of our facilities that we have here. And then finally had another NCPA executive and commission meeting last Thursday up in Roseville. And we're getting close on a new general manager. And as soon as we have that, I will share that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What a saga to find a new manager there. Yeah. But thanks for your work on that. We'd like to go next. Okay.
I don't really have a lot to report beyond what we all experienced was the Bowman ribbon cutting at Bowman Place. Beautiful, beautiful apartments. And the whole thing really is amazing. So I was really impressed with that. And then, of course, the parade, which was fabulous, and the fair, and all of that was really, really great. So enjoyed that.
Thank you.
The FFA parade, the Twilight Future Farmers Parade is like always one of my favorite nights of the year in this town, and seeing so many people come out and, go to the fair afterwards and bringing community together. It just is like, it encompasses all of the reasons why I love Healdsburg in one night. We were able to cut the ribbon at Bowman Place, and I just wanted to echo those comments. It's so great to see an affordable housing site that is really a part of a broader community, and that there's just flow from Enzo Village through into Appalachian. And I think it's going to be a really beautiful, like, mixed use space when it's done as well, when the tenants come into the commercial spaces. So looking forward to seeing it complete. On Friday last week, two Fridays ago, we did a Smart Train Board of Directors MTC bike ride using the Redwood Bike Share bikes that are adjacent to smart stations. So a bunch of directors rode the train down from Railroad Square in Santa Rosa to Roanoke Park, and then checked out the bikes, similar to the e-bikes that we used to have. They have these white e-bikes in different spaces all the way down to Marin County, centered around the smart station cities. And so the SCTCA is applying for ongoing funds from MTC to continue funding those bikes. And there really is a great connection in between people who are using them to get back and forth to riding smart. So that was fun to get to experience, and riding on the path from Roanoke Park to Santa Rosa, which I've never done before, in a path segment that is newly completed. So that was really fun to get to see. The activities are kicking off for the upcoming Alexander Valley Now True West Film Festival that's happening in town in a couple weeks. So you'll see signage about the Festival of Love, but I know they had their kickoff Film Fest pass pickup last week, and I was able to hear about the films and the directors and people that are coming to Healdsburg, and they really have a fascinating lineup of folks that are going to be descending on Healdsburg for their festival coming up this month. And then otherwise just celebrated a birthday this past weekend, and
Happy birthday.
decided to be into June, and almost the end of the school year.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that you forgot a really important event that you hosted, a panel at True West about the housing, which was really helpful in understanding the dynamics between a community and a housing project and how that all worked together. The campaign of education was extremely helpful presentation that you were participated in. And Bowman is a fantastic project. I mean, it's one thing when you see designs and layouts, but to actually see how those affordable units blend in with that whole development, it's just a really good job of bringing that project to fruition. I attended the L&M lunch also. That was really nice. Also was with the mayor at the Memorial Day celebration at our Oak Mound Cemetery. Also with the mayor was the Ward Street event with the community, getting to hear the concerns of those residents, and the residents actually knowing that we came to them is another nice event that we do. We don't just expect people to come to us, we actually go out into the community. And then on last Thursday, I was able to take a tour the Pepperwood Preserve with the Russian River Watershed Association, of really the work that they're doing up there, fire outlook cameras and things to keep us not only just our water resources clear, but also fire protection. So that was a nice presentation. And that's about it.
All right, thank you. So covered a lot of the things that I did, but a couple things worth adding. One, I participated in Locien's Charla program, where they do, that just means conversation. So they host, different cities host conversation. We had about, I forget that, maybe 15 people are here, and they all represent a different community groups and nonprofits, and we met here at City Hall, and it was pretty open-ended conversation, meet the mayor sort of thing, get to know about Healdsburg, what we're doing here, and it was a really fantastic conversation, and it was a lot of great questions, and was really grateful to be able to participate with those folks and talk about a lot of the topics that we talk about quite often. Housing, of course, was top of the list, but it was a wide-ranging conversation. I was really glad to be able to do that, and then we all participated in the check delivery for the I think Evelyn couldn't make it, but the Healdsburg wine and food experience. So that was nice, and it was kind of cool to see the inside of that for the first time. I met with Steve DeVeris, who's the head of that, last Saturday to show him the Foley Center because he didn't really get a chance to see that, and consider if that's going to have a place in future events with them or not. And there's a lot of questions to answer there, but it was good to walk around with him and have him check it out and answer questions and talk a little bit more about how the experience worked for him. And so I was glad for that morning to happen. And then I think that's it. I think we're good. All right. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to adjourn at 9:18.